Apocalypse. I can steal superpowers. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26. Behemoth. Situation refers to the tendency of things and forces. For martial arts, it is an indescribable and yet expressible state. Lifting heavy things as if they were light. Lifting light things as if they were heavy. Lifting heavy things as if they were heavy. Lifting light things as if they were light. Being able to handle light and heavy things naturally. These are the three stages of situation and are also the best description. Brother G. Zhu Yi was not too surprised because he had seen Luo's serious state but was full of excitement and pride. As for the instructors who were watching, they were all martial artists who had practiced martial arts for many years. Most of them might not understand Luo's situation, but they could feel the insurmountable gap, especially the suffocating pressure. And this kind of pressure on Lao Shaoyuan was like a mountain and a sea. Lao Shaoyuan watched Luo approach step by step. He clenched his teeth tightly and blood oozed from his gums. The fear and pressure made him almost crazy. In the end, Lao Shaoyuan chose to move forward. Lao Shaoyuan shouted in a hoarse voice to encourage himself, and then he rushed forward and kicked out a very difficult roundhouse kick with an extremely sharp posture. However, Luo did not have the slightest intention of dodging or retreating. He blocked Lao Shaoyuan's roundhouse kick with his right arm, without even shaking his arm. Then, Luo turned his hand and grabbed, and Lao Shaoyuan was lifted up directly. In midair, Lao Shaoyuan wanted to kick Luo with his other foot, but he didn't expect that before he kicked out, he had been thrown out like garbage. Now, it's my turn. It was a change from extreme stillness to extreme movement, like an arrow from a full bow. Luo's body paused in place, and then turned into a residual image, and instantly rushed to the front of Lao Shaoyuan, who fell. And then it was a downward chop like an axe. At that moment, Lao Shaoyuan, who was lying on the ground, was sure that, if he was hit by this downward chop, he would die. Between life and death, Lao Shaoyuan no longer cared about his image. He rolled and crawled to the side, almost following Luo's chop. Snap. The floor in the dojo is a real solid wood floor. Considering the needs of martial arts training, the floor is thickened. However, when Luo's feet landed on the ground, the neat floor instantly cracked, as if it was hit by a heavy hammer, and the broken wood stubble flew everywhere, revealing a large hole. Luo seemed to know that the floor would be shattered by his chop. His steps did not stop at all. He took an inch step, and then elbowed with his right arm. This elbow hit Lao Shaoyuan's face directly. If it hit him, Lao Shaoyuan's nose would never be raised in this life. Under the threat of disfigurement, Lao Shaoyuan, who was about to get up, had to give up and hurriedly propped up his arms to block it. Crack. After the sound of tiny bone cracks, Lao Shaoyuan screamed miserably, like a replay of a certain scene. Crossing Kyan failed to block the downward chops and elbow strikes, and broke one arm. Lao Shaoyuan did block it, but still broke one arm. Fortunately, Luo didn't hit him too hard, and Lao Shaoyuan's left arm was only slightly broken, not the kind of fracture that was completely bent. Be careful, you will die. Luo elbowed Lao Shaoyuan back to the ground, and then suddenly retracted his right arm, clenched his fist, and smashed it under his body. Fortunately, Lao Shaoyuan was experienced in actual combat after all. When his left arm was broken, he didn't care about screaming, and rolled out directly, which made Luo's punch hit nothing. Boom. Luo didn't know how much strength he used in his fist. Lao Shaoyuan had obviously dodged, but he didn't stop. He punched the floor, and broke the thick wooden floor directly. Asshole. As Lao Shaoyuan rolled and fled, he was covered with a lot of dust. Especially since the gym was under renovation, there was still some sand on the ground, which made Lao Shaoyuan look even more embarrassed. After being beaten like this by Luo, Lao Shaoyuan lost his mind. Anger and shame made him ignore everything. He grabbed the iron pipe on the ground with his right hand, and swung it directly towards Luo's head. Die. The pain in his left arm made Lao Shaoyuan hysterical. At this time, he really used all his strength. The iron pipe whistled and turned into a black shadow. As the target, Gluo, who should have dodged, did not retreat. Instead, he took a step forward and suddenly turned around and kicked sideways. Bang! The iron pipe that Lao Shaoyuan swung with all his strength collided with Gluo's cuff in midair. A muffled sound rang out. The recoil force made the iron pipe in Lao Shaoyuan's hand fly backwards instantly and finally hit the wall with a deafening sound, leaving a grey scar. What a lack of martial ethics. Gluo put down his kicked right leg and moved it on the ground. There was no pain on his face, as if he had just kicked a bubble. How is it possible? Lao Shaoyuan stood there in a daze, almost unable to believe that he swung the iron pipe with such great strength, and Gluo kicked him sideways in the face, like he was looking for death. In the end, the iron pipe flew out of his hand, and Gluo's right leg was not damaged at all. What a joke. Is this young man in front of him really a human? He is a warrior. He has trained his body for more than 20 years. Even if he uses one hand, he can kill a person directly by swinging the iron pipe with all his strength. If he hits the head, it may have the same effect as a pistol bullet and explode directly. However, this young man actually kicked the iron pipe away and was not hurt at all. This is not good. Gluo looked at Lao Shaoyuan, who was horrified, and smiled and shook his head. Then he leaned forward and instantly shrunk to the ground and directly pushed Lao Shaoyuan in the chest with a violent push. At that moment, Gluo's speed was too fast, so fast that Lao Shaoyuan could not react at all. Moreover, unlike Tang Ruox's push, after Gluo's push hit Lao Shaoyuan's body did not retreat half a step. He stood there like a hanger and even lowered his head to look at Gluo, who was retracting his hands in front of him. Puff. In a trance, Lao Shaoyuan suddenly widened his eyes and covered his mouth with his hands anxiously. Even so, a large amount of blood he spit out still leaked from his fingers. Cough cough cough. How is it possible? Lao Shaoyuan spit out blood as soon as he said a word. He looked at Gluo, who was smiling, and his body shook twice and fell down. Why bother? Gluo held up Lao Shaoyuan's fallen body with his hands, then put him on the ground and slowly stood up. Call 120. His injuries are a bit serious, but he won't die. He will just have to stay in the hospital for half a year. Gluo turned his head and glanced at the onlookers. Everyone lowered their heads at the same time, and no one dared to look at Gluo. Chapter 27. Shadows. What are you doing? Make a phone call. Gluo shouted sharply, as if he was dissatisfied with everyone's lack of response. Instantly, everyone was frightened and trembled, and several people started to make phone calls. Looking at the teacher's terrified expressions, Gluo nodded with great satisfaction. Why did he let these people watch? Wasn't it just to let them see how cruel he was? If it was just to defeat Lao Shaoyuan, Gluo could do it as easily as crushing a bug. But if he wanted to become the master of the way and sit firmly in this position, he had to show his ability and make everyone convinced or terrified. So, Gluo showed them how to smash the floor, break the floor with his fists, kick the iron pipe horizontally, and make people vomit blood with a push. Especially the last push. Those who don't understand can only see how powerful it is, but those who really understand will definitely be terrified. A push, hitting the chest, making people vomit blood violently, but it is guaranteed that they will not die, and the injury can be cured. This force must not exceed the line. A little more force may break Lao Shaoyuan's stomach and lungs, and the person will definitely die. Moreover, the push hands hit Lao Shaoyuan, making him not retreat even a step. This is to control the distance to the limit, and the burst point of force is accurate. It not only hurts Lao Shaoyuan internally, but also does not make his body shake at all. It is simply art. It's a pity that only Gluo can understand this art. When Gluo walked back, everyone unconsciously pushed back a step, especially Zizin, who was now a little shaky. I won. Gluo walked in front of Tang Ruoxi leisurely. The girl seemed to have thought of something. Her expression stiffened for a moment, and she raised her head reluctantly. You are very good. Thank you for the compliment. Now it's your turn. Gluo made a gesture of invitation, and Tang Ruox's face turned pale instantly, and she bit her lip unconsciously. Did you misunderstand something? What I mean is that I have finished fighting with Lao Shaoyuan, and it's your turn to fight him. Luo showed an expression of successful prank, and Tang Ruoxi suddenly raised her head and stared at Luo with an inexplicable look. What's wrong? Am I wrong? Look, your senior brother Crossing Khan's arm was broken by Lao Shaoyuan, so you should seek revenge on him. Besides, Lao Shaoyuan is still the master of the sect. If you want to challenge him and regain the reputation of the Thunder Hand, shouldn't you fight him too? Finally, Lao Shaoyuan has no martial ethics, so everyone can kill him. We martial artists must curb this bad atmosphere, so it is only natural for you to beat him. Luo said it so high-soundingly that Tang Ruox's eyes widened, as if she had never seen such a shameless person. Lao Shaoyuan is now lying on the ground vomiting blood because of your beating. If I go over and hit him a few more times, he will probably die on the spot. Then I will become a murderer and take the blame for you. No need now. Wait until he is discharged from the hospital. Tang Ruoxi couldn't possibly fight this dog like Lao Shaoyuan again. The girl ended her plan to challenge the gym with a very martial ethics excuse. Let Lao Shaoyuan recover first, and then fight him after he recovers. Then you have to wait a little longer. Luo shrugged his shoulders, showing a very regretful expression. Then he turned his head and stretched out his hand to Zizin. Boss Z, please give me more advice. Please give me more advice. Zizin was really scared by Luo's ferocity, and now he was a little slurred when he spoke. Normally, as the owner of Xiaodao Fitness Club, Zizin would never agree that anyone who defeated Lao Shaoyuan could become a master of traditional martial arts. Their store is not to select the leader of the martial arts world, but to make money for business. You must not only be able to fight, but also be able to teach students, and even run the business. However, looking at Lao Shaoyuan, who had just vomited a pool of blood on the ground and had lost consciousness, and thinking about Luo's terrifying momentum and fighting style just now, Zizin was unable to say no after all. To be honest, Zizin didn't know if it was his own illusion. Although he saw Luo smiling, that smile was extremely creepy. It was as if Luo was threatening him. If he rejected Luo's goodwill, then he would have to face his ferocity. Haha, don't be so nervous. I'm not a good person, no. I'm not a bad person. Luo looked at Zizin, who was mentally broken, and showed a very bright smile on his face. Zizin certainly didn't feel wrong. Luo was threatening him in order to get close to Su Qinghen's plan. Luo must become the master chef here. 1 month is fine, but he must sit. Luo, I'm going to draft the contract now, and I'll come to you later. Zizin's back was full of sweat, and his nervous smile was a little deformed. He was really scared by Luo. This man is too cruel and extremely dangerous. Excuse me, Director Z. Luo restrained his momentum and turned back to a harmless look. Zizin nodded and walked out of the door with a slightly sloping step. Tang Ruoxi, now I'm the master of the Guardian. How about it? Are you interested in coming to teach? Luo was still very interested in Tang Ruoxi, especially curious about her status. How should she take the last step from an ordinary person to an evolver? This answer may be of great help to Luo. I'm still in the 3rd grade of junior high school, and I don't have time now. Tang Ruoxi rejected Luo reflexively, but the girl soon thought of something, and couldn't help frowning and thinking for a while. Wait for the winter vacation. If I have time during the winter vacation, I will come and do a part-time job. No problem. Which school are you from? Let's exchange numbers. Luo's attitude towards Tang Ruoxi was very enthusiastic. The girl stepped back a little unaccustomed, but still answered Luo's question, and gave her phone number to Luo. Done. Luo dialed Tang Ruoxi's number. The two saved each other's contacts. Tang Ruoxi felt that the time was almost up, so she decided to leave. Okay, be careful on the road. Call me if you have anything. Luo waved at Tang Ruoxi, not wanting to keep her any longer. The girl bowed her head and saluted, then turned and walked out of the gym. Brother G. Zuyuli walked to Luo's side a little embarrassedly. He didn't expect that his idea would really work, and his mind was still a little dazed. Don't worry, I'll protect you. Luo gave Zuyuli a look, raised his hand and clapped twice, drawing everyone's attention. Attention, instructors, this is Zuyi, the new instructor, teaching spearmanship. Everyone take care of him as the new boss. GLUO personally introduced the person who dared not give face. All the instructors applauded and were very welcoming to Zuyi. Yes, how could they not welcome him? GLUO had just beaten the previous boss half to death, and now someone was giving him a cold shoulder, which was really like an old man hanging himself. He was tired of living. Of course, judging from the result, it was obvious that everyone was not tired of living, and their attitude was very correct. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28, Spring. As dusk approached, the noise and chaos came to an end. Lao Shaoyuan was taken away by ambulance, along with several of his apprentices. Xiaodao's business was affected after all, and the store was closed early. Zizin stayed in the office for more than half an hour, and when he came out, he had regained his composure. He was still trustworthy, and only slightly adjusted the contract between him and Lao Shaoyuan, and did not modify the important parts. GLUO read it, and thought it was okay, so he signed his name. Judging from his emotions alone, Zizin did not have any unhappy expression. He called all the employees of Xiaodao Gym, solemnly introduced GLUO to them, and as promised, handed over all the matters of Chuanwu to GLUO. GLUO himself did not expect that Zizin would be so kind, and he did not know Lao Shaoyuan's contract, so it was very simple for Zizin to modify the share. Moreover, he was so young, and it should be very simple for Zizin, the boss, to control him in some aspects. But he did not. After going through a set of procedures, GLUO could not help but look at Zizin with a higher eye. After all, he is an evolver. The reason why he is so unscrupulous on this trip is that he has a trump card. If it doesn't work, he can just die and return, and he can handle anything. As for Zizin, it is clear that GLUO, the intruder, has messed up his business. But after making the choice, he did not hesitate to start to strongly support him, and his decisiveness was a bit scary. After Lao Shaoyuan was sent to the hospital, all the teachers and apprentices who had a good relationship with him in the store were fired, and they left in a hurry, and in a mess. Obviously, this Zizin is not a simple person. He was either really scared by GLUO, or he had a very good vision and felt that GLUO was extraordinary, so he directly gave up a heavy bet in order to earn 1,000 times back. At the end of the incident, Zizin personally sent GLUO and Zuyi downstairs and enthusiastically wanted them to start work tomorrow. Zuyi agreed very excitedly, but GLUO did not answer immediately, but stared at Zizin for a while and only nodded in agreement after his smile disappeared. Then, the two parties separated. GLUO rejected Zuyi's idea of going with him. He walked into the darkness alone and silently. They are not simple characters. GLUO thought about the difference between Zizin before and after, and he admired this rich second generation. Zizin's invitation, before they separated, not only showed his welcome to them, but also tested their attitude. Zuyi agreed happily. To put it bluntly, he really needed this salary. He was so happy that he wanted to go to work immediately. GLUO did not answer, but just stared at him until he took off his disguise. This was an answer and a threat. To answer him, he did not care about this job and had no intention of taking his power. To threaten him, he would keep watching him, but as long as it was not too excessive, he would still cooperate. Anyway, no matter what, I can kill him. GLUO lowered his eyelids, and he was indifferent to Zizin's idea. This world is too deep and vast. No matter how high you stand, you may be drowned by a wave. It's just a survival. The night is graceful, and the towering buildings are like beautiful lanterns. The shops on the street are getting more and more crowded. GLUO is in a bad mood, so he avoids the crowd and walks to the dark old street. The old street is not old, but it is like a dividing line, clearly dividing the high-rise buildings and the old communities. Compared with the brightly lit streets, most of the shops in the old street are small and the decoration is also shabby, but the prices are much lower. Gluo is not hungry yet, but it will be very late when he gets home by car. He will start work tomorrow and go to bed early, so he has no time to cook dinner. Buying something is the best choice. There are not many foods that can be taken home and still taste the same. Gluo walked around for a long time and didn't find what he wanted to eat, so he walked into the old street. On a remote street corner, Gluo saw a small storefront. The storefront was very narrow, with a 3-story glass counter, which contained bread, cakes, and even some biscuits. On the sign, that was blurred by the rain, you could see the word Spring Cake Shop. The name was so simple that it reminded people of their childhood, but the smell was very sweet. Is anyone there? Yes. Someone answered the voice in the back room of the store, and then the sound of moving a stool was heard, and a girl in a light-colored apron came out. The low-wattage incandescent lamp was a little dim. The tall girl walked out of the room and was stunned for a moment when she saw Gluo's appearance, but she did not show any abnormality. She just walked to the counter and opened the bag. What do you want? Gluo pursed his lips, his eyes widened, and for a moment he didn't even know what to say. What a coincidence, he actually met Sukinghan here without any preparation. Under the warm yellow light, Sukinghan, who always had a cool temperament, seemed to have lost her frost color and had a warm feeling. The girl's hands were stained with flour, and the apron on her body was washed white, but it was very clean. Perhaps for the sake of work, she tied a ponytail, and a few strands of hair were mischievously scattered, forcing the girl to tuck them behind her ears, but also let the girl's face be stained with a few flowers. Sukinghan's appearance full of life made her original sushi-independent temperament completely dissipate. The girl seemed to have walked out of her air painting scroll and became a good wife and mother with firewood, rice, oil and salt. At this moment, there was no murderous intent and coldness in her eyes, but a kind of peaceful tenderness. My name is Gluo. What's your name? Gluo no longer had the calmness he had when facing other people. He rubbed his cheeks, rubbed his hands on his clothes, and his voice was trembling with nervousness. Gluo remembered that in this timeline, he had not asked Sukinghan's name yet, and the two of them still didn't know each other. Sukinghan did not answer Gluo's words. She stared at Gluo, carefully observing his expression, until he lost confidence and lowered his head to act like a quail. Look above. Sukinghan pointed at the sign of the store. Gluo raised his head and saw the 5-word Spring Cake Shop. His lips moved, not knowing how to respond. Spring. The last 3 words. Cake shop. You know this is a cake shop, and you still ask my name? What do you want to buy? Sukinghan had already seen that Gluo really met her by accident. His shocked and confused look did not seem to be fake. I'll buy a cake. Gluo was frightened by Sukinghan's stare, and he was as honest as a primary school student being criticized by a teacher. Chapter 29. Alone. Put some of it in there for me, I don't know what's delicious. Gluo secretly raised his head and looked at Sukinghan's expression. After confirming that the girl had no misunderstanding or suspicion, he felt relieved. How much do you want? Sukinghan seemed not to notice Gluo's peeking, and she skillfully put the cakes in there. Moreover, she put 1 or 2 of each kind, and some bread, but not much. Are these enough? Enough, thank you. Gluo looked at the 2 or 3 pounds of cakes that Sukinghan put in there, and didn't dare to say that it was too much. He just watched the girl weigh it, and handed the bag to him. How much? Gluo took out 100 yuan, and handed it out, and didn't dare to ask Sukinghan why she didn't weigh it. Who knew that Sukinghan didn't take his money, but just handed the bag to Gluo. Just consider it as a reward for your help this morning. My name is Sukinghan. Thank you. Gluo was stunned for a moment, and then reacted immediately. He looked at Sukinghan with a smile, and didn't refuse her kindness. What time do you open the shop in the morning? I'll come to your place for breakfast from now on. Are you still planning to keep eating my cakes for free? No. I'll pay, and I'll pay properly. Gluo shook his head violently for a while, fearing that Sukinghan would misunderstand him, but he didn't expect that when he looked up, he found that Sukinghan was looking at him with a smile. Gluo immediately understood that he was fooled by Sukinghan. I usually open the shop at 8 o'clock. If you come too early, there may not be new cakes. Okay, I remember. Gluo nodded vigorously. Sukinghan's attitude really surprised him. Sukinghan, who turned into the proprietress of the cake shop, seemed to be integrated into the atmosphere of fireworks and lived. She really looked like an ordinary person. Gluo didn't know whether this was Sukinghan's deliberate performance or her personality was like this. The coldness before was just her heavy and thick armor. By the way, if it's still open at 8:30, it means I overslept and took a day off. Yeah. Gluo certainly understood what Sukinghan meant by rest, but he didn't go into it. Now, the reason why Sukinghan's attitude has become better is probably because she also understands that, since Gluo has accidentally met her, there is a high possibility that he will come close to her in the future, so there is no need to make it like a blood feud. Gluo, do you work nearby? Yes. Do you know Xiaodao Gym? It's in that building. Gluo pointed back. Coincidentally, the building directly opposite Sukinghan's shop is where Xiaodao Gym is located. When Gluo is at work, he may see Sukinghan selling cakes. Oh, I know. Sukinghan nodded, patted the flour on his hands, and didn't ask any more. That's it. Goodbye. Goodbye. Gluo carried the cake, waved to Sukinghan, walked a few steps slowly, and turned his head to look. Under the old street lights, the cake shop was like a quiet old man. There was no one at the counter. Sukinghan should have gone back to the house to prepare. Gluo stood and watched for a while, and then left reluctantly. The word fate is really wonderful and beautiful. Today, Gluo experienced 3 encounters, and his first meeting with Sukinghan was repeated 3 times. In the first encounter, the situation was strange, and Sukinghan finally pierced Gluo's heart, full of apologies. In the second encounter, Gluo chose to fall from a tall building, with only size. In the third encounter, Gluo relied on the method of acting self-harm to save people and leave a chance. In these 3 encounters, Gluo saw different Sukinghan, her coldness, her madness, and her kindness. Such a contradictory and strange image made Gluo puzzled and sad. However, the most amazing thing is that Gluo met her again unexpectedly and beyond the plan. This time, she shared the mystery and coldness of the evolver and became the proprietress of a cake shop. When chatting, there were even teasing and jokes. Why, it turned out like this. Gluo didn't know what he was thinking. Anyway, his mind was in a mess. He was carrying a bag of cakes and didn't know when he got on the return bus. 10 years have passed since Gluo awakened his innate ability. Gluo has completely forgotten himself before becoming an evolver. He has been to many cities, changed countless jobs, and met countless people of all kinds. He is like a traveler with nowhere to stay, searching and waiting. Until today, he met Sukinghan and finally found his home. Gluo was actually very happy, but this happiness was covered by more negative emotions. But everything is worth it. He found a job close to Sukinghan, saw her daily life, and had the opportunity to get close to her. Gluo doesn't know what the future will be like, and he can't see it clearly. But for now, Gluo wants to approach Sukinghan gently and steadily as an ordinary person. Don't be impatient, absolutely not. Gluo leaned his head against the car window, looking at the lights gradually fading away, feeling a little excited and a little uneasy. Now, he is still far away from Sukinghan and the darkness of Zinki Group. As a bystander, a weak and helpless third party, he can only hide himself and wait quietly. Originally, Gluo wanted to move immediately after finding a job, but now, Gluo has changed his mind. He plans to work for a while first, so that Sukinghan can get used to his daily life. There is no doubt that Sukinghan will investigate everything about him inside and out, but as long as he passes this examination, he will be trusted by Sukinghan, and everything will be easy after that. Anyway, Gluo's house will expire next month, and he will be suspected if he is too anxious to find a house. It is better to lurk first and wait for an opportunity. After all, everything is not so fast. Although Zinki bio-pharmaceutical branch has found 30 logistics companies, the contract has been signed, and the deposit has been paid. There is no definite news on when the transportation will be carried out. Wang Zilin guessed that it might be after the spring festival that's next year. Mu Yingluo's transportation is not so urgent, Su Qinghan will not be so anxious, and Gluo does not need to be anxious. Work with peace of mind. You have to be worthy of Zizin's high salary, right? Gluo couldn't help but smile happily when he thought of the salary in the contract. Lao Shaoyuan was quite famous, otherwise Zizin wouldn't have given him such favorable conditions for cooperation. It's just a pity that now, all these benefits belong to Gluo. This world is not fair. Gluo returned home exhausted. He was the only one in the empty house. Gluo heated a pack of milk and finished his dinner alone at the table. Outside the window, thousands of lights were on. Chapter 30, December. 7 AM, December 1st, 3005. In December, the weather turned cold, and getting up became as uncomfortable as torture. Zuyi huddled in the quilt for a while, then hurriedly got dressed and started to face a new day. Compared with the well-equipped facilities in the newly built community, some older houses always have various problems, but Zuyi is not a squeamish person. He suffered much more when he was a child than now, and they are all trivial matters. Zuyi did not have the habit of making his own breakfast, so he chose an affordable steamed bun shop. People like him who practice martial arts eat a lot, and if they don't eat well for breakfast, they will feel uncomfortable all day. The prices in the old street are slightly lower, and a tray of vegetarian steamed buns is 2 yuan cheaper than meat ones. If it were 10 days ago, Zuyi would definitely buy steamed buns with chives and eggs, which are big and economical. However, after changing to a new job, considering the impression he would give to the students, Zuyi no longer eats things with strong smells such as chives or garlic. Although time was not urgent, Zuyi was used to eating in a hurry. He finished 3 trays of meat buns in just a few minutes, drank 2 bowls of soy milk, and after paying the bill, Zuyi felt comfortable all over. Now that I think about it, I still feel a bit like I'm dreaming. These days, Zuyi occasionally wakes up when he sleeps. It's not because he's afraid of anything, but because he's so excited that he's dreaming. He's a silly boy from the village. He works as a laborer on the construction site. When he gets out, he deals with cement and bricks all day long. He sends some of the money he earns back home and saves some for himself. He doesn't want to eat or spend it. But 10 days ago, he met Brother G by accident, and everything went incredibly smoothly afterwards. He's a fool with no education at all, but he can actually work in a high-rise building and meet rich and educated people. He's amazing. Of course, these people are not as good as Brother G. Apart from anything else, Brother G's brain and methods are really amazing. After taking over the martial arts business of Shaodao Gym, Brother G used the test as an excuse to discuss with all the instructors. Everyone immediately became convinced and followed his lead. Moreover, Brother G was also open-minded. He directly linked the number of students to the salary of the instructors. Part of the commission was taken out by Brother G from his own share. It must be said that, as Brother G often said, when the money is there, everything is there. Brother G took out a part of the commission to subsidize the instructors. All the instructors took the money and supported Brother G even more. Moreover, everyone is now very attentive, teaching attentively and recruiting people attentively. However, for the commission, the relationship between the instructors gradually became tense. 2 days ago, 2 instructors almost fought for a few students. Fortunately, Brother G mediated and calmed the situation, and the matter was perfectly resolved. However, after that, the relationship between the 2 instructors became antagonistic, and they were always sarcastic and tit-for-tat with each other. But it is not without benefits. Now they compete to attract people all day long, and they want to see the real results in salary. What worries Zuyi is that this situation has a tendency to spread. For each instructor, as long as he has 1 more student every month, he will get a commission of 200 or 300 yuan. If he really has to pay dozens of people, the salary will double. Who wouldn't be jealous? Zuyi was a little tempted by so much money, not to mention other instructors. Anyway, this situation is quite dangerous. Zuyi couldn't help but reported to Brother G yesterday. However, what Zuyi didn't expect was that Brother G was not only not uneasy, but laughed with relief. Later, although Brother G explained it to him, Zuyi still didn't understand what it meant. However, Zuyi knew that Brother G's position as a master chef was more stable, and the number of students on the Chuanwu side increased, and he made more money. The boss Zizin was very happy, and treated Brother G better. Zuyi was not very clear about these things, but occasionally, he heard other instructors chatting, saying that Brother G, the master, was ruthless, and the tactics he used were ruthless to the core. If this goes on, no instructor can stick together. In order to stay here, who wants to get close to Brother G? Brother G will find a way to balance, and with his overwhelming force, it won't be long before Brother G's words are more effective than the boss on the traditional martial arts side. By that time, Zizin and Brother G will have to discuss before they talk. If he uses force and wants to replace Brother G, the master, then he must be prepared for the complete collapse of the traditional martial arts side. Brother G subsidizes the teaching with commissions, and his force is comparable to the reincarnation of Xiang Yu. He treats people kindly and fairly. Without him to suppress them, the contradictions on the traditional martial arts side will explode, and they can fight each other to the point of brains bursting. Brother G is good in everything, but his way of chasing girls is a bit stupid. At this time, Zuyi had already walked to the door of Xiao Dao. He walked along and greeted everyone, and everyone was very nice to him. Zuyi also knew that as the only person brought by Brother G, he was Brother G's spy in everyone's eyes, and Zuyi did so. He didn't think there was anything wrong with it. Brother G was so good, giving everyone a raise and reconciling conflicts. Why should anyone slander him? Anyway, Zuyi was not afraid. With Brother G around, no one dared to treat him lightly. Zuyi also knew that he was an uneducated fool. In the first few days of work, the receptionists at the door always teased him. Later, Brother G took him and treated all the receptionists to a meal. Since then, these beautiful girls no longer teased him and always spoke softly to him. Zuyi was not a person who didn't know how to be grateful. He remembered all these things. He could work here, was not excluded by other teachers, and received a lot of care, all because of the help of Brother G. Alas, but I can't help Brother G. Zuyi stood in the empty corridor, looking down at the situation on another street, and couldn't help saying. At this moment, in front of the remote cake shop on the old street, their master chef who upholds the Tao and passes on martial arts, Brother G, who is righteous and kind, is happily taking over a bag of freshly baked cakes. Brother G likes the proprietress of the cake shop on the next street. This is already a well-known fact. Brother G, who is calm and composed in front of anyone, is extremely lame when facing the girl surnamed Sue. To be honest, Zuyi also thinks that Brother G is a little too attentive, without any restraint or style. Some people in the company even said bad things about Brother G, saying that Brother G is like a dog. Zuyi was very angry after hearing this, but it was a pity that he didn't find the person who said this, otherwise he would have to beat him up. However, it was not good for Brother G to do this. He would go to the door of the cake shop early in the morning every day and wait there. He knew that the cakes were not ready at that time, but he would wait there, just to chat with the girl surnamed Sue. And he would buy a lot of cakes every time, which he would definitely not be able to finish. So he distributed cakes every day. Why did Zuyi eat buns today? Because he had eaten cakes for breakfast for 10 days, and he really couldn't bear it anymore. Chapter 31, Surprise. It's true. I can't stand it anymore. Luo walked on the cold street, holding a bag of hot cakes in his hand. He was a little hungry, but when he smelled the cake, he not only didn't want to eat it, but wanted to vomit. There was no way, really no way. In order to get in touch with Su Qinghan, since that evening, Luo ran here early every morning, waiting for the first batch of cakes to come out of the oven, and then bought most of them. Men generally don't like sweets, so Luo can accept it. However, he has been eating cake every morning for 10 days. And as an evolver, Luo has a big appetite. He really has had enough and really wants to eat something spicy, the kind that makes his mouth water. Forget it, the cake will be used to win people's hearts. Although Luo was a little reluctant before entering the building, Luo still bought a few Raoji ammo, holding the cake in one hand and the Raoji ammo in the other hand, and started to eat. Hiss, it smells so good. Brother G, Master G, Boss G. After entering the Shaodao gym, everyone who saw GLUO was very nice. GLUO was not a pretentious person. He responded to everyone and gave them freshly baked cakes. When GLUO sat in his office, there was only one piece of cake left in the bag. GLUO finished the remaining meat sandwich and slowly tasted the cake as a dessert. It must be said that Su Qinghen's craftsmanship is really good. The cakes she made are soft, glutinous and sweet. The women in the company's reception and finance departments give a thumbs up every time they eat them, and most girls even go to her to buy cakes. Of course, they may want to see what the person who makes Master G so obsessed with people looks like. So, there is another surprise. If Su Qinghen is not entangled with so many causes and effects, she really opens a store and can definitely develop it. After eating the cake, GLUO began to worry about Su Qinghen's strategy task again. GLUO also knew what was said outside, such as love at first sight, stupid, licking dog. Anyway, most of them were not good words. Of course, what he showed was not worthy of good words. However, GLUO had no choice. Although he wanted to get close to Su Qinghen now, he didn't dare to be too urgent. If he forced Su Qinghen too much, it would be a death sentence. Moreover, he was not without progress. At least now, he went there early every morning to wait. Before the first box of cakes came out of the oven, Su Qinghen was willing to chat with him. Oh my god, do you know how good news this is? How much encouragement it is? Don't underestimate this progress. This shows from the side that GLUO has passed Su Qinghen's preliminary review. For several days, GLUO felt that someone was staring at him when he went home at night. Even when he returned home one day, he felt that his house was infiltrated, but nothing was lost. This can be confirmed that Su Qinghen has regarded him as an ordinary person. Otherwise, she would not have been able to infiltrate so roughly. Of course, it can also be said that this infiltration is also a test. A gentleman is honest and a villain is not afraid of anything. GLUO is such a gentleman that he is not afraid of anything. The result is also very pleasing. To be honest, GLUO has been very restrained. Normally, to pursue a girl, you need to understand her and do an investigation first. But does GLUO dare to do that? He can only make a fuss around the cake shop and eat cakes every day, which makes people stupid. Why? It's because he buys cakes for breakfast in the morning and buys a bunch of leftover cakes for dinner in the evening. Anyway, GLUO also thinks that doing this is really licking the dog. But looking at the pros and cons of everything, isn't this also a benefit? Such licking the dog behavior can further strengthen his personality and make Su Qinghen feel at ease. However, this stage is almost over. Anyway, GLUO can't hold on. If he eats cakes twice a day, he may not have diabetes, but he may have tooth decay. Moving, it's almost time to put it on the agenda. GLUO's house expires on December 13th. And GLUO has told the landlord that he will not renew the lease. The landlord had posted the rental information long ago and even brought people to see the house. Regardless of the public opinion, GLUO felt that his contact with Su Qinghen was quite good. After all, he didn't really want to pursue Su Qinghen, he just wanted to get to know her. Knock knock knock. Come in. GLUO put away his thoughts and raised his head again. Zhu Yi pushed the door and walked into the room, his footsteps very light. Brother G, I have good news to tell you. What good news? GLUO thought about it and didn't expect Zhu Yi to have any good news. Although Zhu Yi was his number one lackey, the eyes and ears who got information from his subordinates. But everyone knew Zhu Yi's identity, but no real fool would gossip in front of him. As for Chuan Wu, GLUO had already wiped out the arrogance of all the instructors by fighting and defending. These people were as obedient as fish on the chopping board, and there was no resistance. They all got close to GLUO and wanted to report to him. With such a good situation, what good news could Zhu Yi be excited about? Hey, Brother G, I know the address of the owner of the spring cake shop. Hiss. GLUO knew that Zhu Yi wanted to give him a surprise, but unfortunately he was only surprised, not happy. How did you investigate? You followed her. GLUO looked Zhu Yi up and down, trying to confirm whether he was secretly poisoned and died suddenly inexplicably later. With Sukinghan's personality, if anyone dared to investigate her, especially such sensitive information as her address, she would probably kill someone immediately and then move away and disappear. No, I sell buns outside my community, and I live in the same building with her. Zuyi didn't know that he had walked through the gates of hell and could help Gluo. He was very happy. The owner of the spring cake shop is Sukinghan, right? Yes. She is beautiful, and the owner of the bun shop wanted to introduce her to his son, but unfortunately she didn't like her. Zuyi asked a lot, otherwise why would he always eat buns? The cheapness of buns is one reason, but more importantly, it is worth going often. What did you find out? Tell me. Gluo didn't expect Zuyi to have such a big breakthrough. He didn't rush to tell Zuyi about his plan to move, but asked about the news first. Sukinghan, she is an orphan. It has always been difficult for her. When she was young, she was sick and was always bullied in the orphanage. So when she was a little older, she ran away from the orphanage and suffered a lot. What Zuyi knew was all hearsay, but Gluo listened very carefully. These stories, even if they were made up by Sukinghan, were true and false. There must be real information in them, but he needed to think and judge. Sukinghan moved here 2 or 3 months ago. At first, she didn't go out much. It seemed that she was writing novels at home. Chapter 32, Hesitation. Later, the owner of the spring cake shop passed away, and Sukinghan bought the cake shop and began her career as a boss lady. However, she didn't seem to be short of money and often closed the shop and went out. After all, Zuyi was not a private detective, and most of the information he found out was ambiguous, but Gluo still listened carefully and wrote down all the information. Zuyi, thank you. This information is very useful. Gluo stood up from the chair with a smile on his face. Only he knew the danger of Sukinghan, and now Zuyi's suicidal behavior could not be allowed to continue. However, he couldn't think of a good reason for the time being. However, you don't need to ask about Sukinghan's information anymore. It's not good. I believe that with my sincerity, she will definitely be moved. Gluo thought for a long time, and finally found this lame excuse, but it was still a reason, but it just sounded very poor. Okay. Zuyi looked at Gluo's confident expression, and suppressed the urge to laugh. Everyone in the company knew that Brother G would never chase girls. Only Brother G felt good about himself and thought that chasing girls would be okay as long as he licked them. Then Brother G, good luck. Zuyi actually knew that he was also a rookie and could not help in this regard. He could only wish Brother G the best. Yeah. By the way, Gluo wanted to mention the matter of renting a house at this time. Since Zuyi already knew Sukinghan's address, it would be a natural thing for him to help rent the house opposite Sukinghan. However, for some reason, when the word came to his lips, Gluo swallowed them back. It was still inappropriate and the heat was not yet right. Doing so now might cause problems. Brother G, what's wrong? Zuyi looked at Gluo's hesitant look and thought it was something difficult. He took a step forward and expressed his intention to charge forward. It's okay. It's not a big deal. There are 2 students who want to learn how to shoot today. You should pay attention. They may bring a lot of people. Gluo didn't mention the renting of a house after all. He handed the 2 documents on the table to Zuyi, indicating that he should make good arrangements for the 2 students. No problem. Although Zuyi was a farm boy and was a bit straightforward, he also had advantages. He was very serious about everything he did and was very patient when teaching. He didn't have many students, but he received very good reviews. Go ahead, come on. Gluo patted Zuyi on the shoulder. The young man seemed to be encouraged, and his back straightened. Then, Zuyi and Gluo said goodbye and left the room. Tangled. Gluo also felt that his mentality was a bit worried about gains and losses. Now that he had just made some progress with Sukinghan, he was afraid that he would make a wrong decision and let all his efforts fall through. This tangled mentality made Gluo's mood not very high that day, and other instructors seemed to have noticed this, and they whispered to him when they talked to him. As the master of traditional martial arts in Shaodao Fitness Center, Gluo was basically the most powerful person except for the boss Zizin. Now, everything in Shaodao has been put on the right track, and Gluo doesn't have much to do, and it can even be said that he is very idle. Originally, GLUO should have opened a special class to teach a group of the most willing to spend money, but GLUO didn't have this idea for the time being, so he distributed the commission and the students to his subordinates to teach. As for GLUO, he stayed in the office every day, and most of the time he was watching videos of various traditional martial arts. After watching the video, GLUO would go to the gym to practice. If there was anything he didn't understand, he would communicate seriously with other instructors. In modern society, the role of martial arts has been suppressed very low. As the boss, GLUO went to exchange experiences with the instructors, which was already regarded as a sign of respect. Who dared to hide it? He was just short of flattering on his face. And this also made GLUO's learning and communication very smooth. To be honest, GLUO had never practiced any martial arts or boxing. As an evolver, his physical ability crushed ordinary people. He took the path of one force over 10 skills and only speed could not be broken. He could win with any moves or cuckold punches. However, since GLUO met Sukinghan, his mentality has changed. If he was facing ordinary people, he would win easily, but when facing other evolvers, GLUO had no rules when fighting, which became his most fatal weakness. Recently, GLUO has been studying the real art of fighting. He had experience in free fighting in the past, and GLUO did not let it go, but he was still hesitant about what weapon to use. Because he had not decided, he had a good chat with every instructor. And GLUO's attitude of being willing to communicate not only did not make all the instructors dissatisfied, but made everyone more convinced of him. After all, GLUO is already invincible. This kind of strong character humbly asks you for advice, which not only damages his majesty, but also makes you feel humble without arrogance or impetuosity. A day's work was quickly spent in a happy slacking. GLUO finally walked around the second floor of the gym. After confirming that everyone had left, he left the gym leisurely. GLUO's habit of being the last to leave was seen by many people, most of whom admired GLUO's hard work and seriousness. Compared with GLUO, Lao Shaoyuan in the past had already left leisurely after teaching a 3-hour course. However, what no one expected was that GLUO was the last to leave, not for some shitty job, but he was waiting for dark, waiting for Sukinghan's cake shop to have no customers. He would buy all the remaining cakes. Had a really an old licking dog. GLUO himself felt that he was a little too licking to this point, but what could he do? If he didn't really want to be licking, who would be willing to be a licking dog in the already cool north wind? GLUO walked alone on the street. The winter solstice was approaching, and the time of dark had begun to advance. Most of the small shops on the street were closed at this time. Along the way, GLUO did not walk fast. This was probably his last pride. Although he was going to be a bootlegger, he could not be too hasty. If he was too hasty, he would have no dignity at all, and would be looked down upon by the goddess. The clouds and wind pass by among all living things. There are only a few fingers who is the one in a million who can shake the world. GLUO sang ancient songs and walked leisurely on the old street. Sukinghan's store was in a bad location, basically very far inside. At this time, there was no one outside, and it was impossible for the cake shop to have customers. However, when the outline of the cake shop appeared in GLUO's sight, he was surprised to find that at this time, there were still 3 people standing in front of the counter of the cake shop. Chapter 33, Cake. Under the dim street lights, the cake shop with a shabby sign stood alone in the darkness. The light of the incandescent lamp was a little dim. There were a lot of bread and cakes left in the glass cabinet, but they still had a sweet smell. Sukinghan stood quietly in the shop, frowning, with no fear in her expression, just some disgust and trouble. Because at this time, 3 scoundrels were standing in front of the shop, with expressions that looked like they deserved a beating. Miss Sue, this is the 3rd time. As the old saying goes, you can't do it again. Today I'm still the one to talk to you, but next time, it won't be me. To be honest, our brothers are not as easy to talk to as I am. There are not many girls as pretty as you. If something happens, it will be really sad. How much money can you make from this shabby store? We are all raised by our parents, and no one wants to embarrass each other. Sell this store to me. I dare not say how much more, but there is still 100,000. You can do anything with this money? The leading gangster deliberately exposed the knife on his waist. His words did not sound bad, but when he spoke, his eyes looked at Soo-King-hun unscrupulously, which seemed to be a bit like taking advantage of the girl. This store was half sold and half given to me by Grandpa Qiu. His last wish was that this store could continue to operate. I don't ask for much, just that this store can continue to operate. Soo-King-hun seemed not to hear the gangster's threat and repeated the words he had said twice in a very calm manner. When the gangster heard Soo-King-hun's words, "I don't ask for much," he burst out laughing. He thought that Soo-King-hun meant to beg him to let her continue to run the store. "Miss Soo, your attitude of begging is wrong. You have to call to say no." The gangster with the knife had a clear implication. The two younger brothers beside him laughed. Soo-King-hun closed her eyes, took a deep breath, but remained silent. She wanted to do it, but she couldn't. She has always given everyone the impression of being weak and quiet. If she ruined her disguise, the possibility of her identity being exposed would greatly increase. Not to mention that the store could not be kept. She would have to flee immediately. Soo-King-hun wanted to keep the store. Not to mention Grandpa Qiu's last wish before his death. Just talking about herself, she liked this kind of life. When she was a child, in the orphanage, Soo-King-hun liked to eat cakes the most. It was a desire and a dream. Later, she deliberately learned to make pastries. It was precisely because of this interest that she survived those extremely difficult days. Now, from the heart, she was tired, really tired, but she couldn't stop yet. She had to keep running. But occasionally, she hoped that she could rest in this place. But now, her simple and beautiful dream was about to be shattered. "Miss Soo, let me put it bluntly. Our boss, you must have heard of him, Brother Mengwu. He has the final say in this area. This place was won with the lives of our brothers. Now, our boss wants to develop this place. No matter who it is, you must give way." Such a small cake shop, 100,000 yuan is not a small amount. If you are greedy and want some shops and buildings, that's the way to death. This is my third time here, and it's also the last time to talk nicely. Next time, it really won't be like this now. Don't blame me for not warning you. Sister, how many merchants have left this street? Have you counted them? Don't seek death. The gangster with the knife looked fierce at this time. He obviously didn't expect that Soo-King-hun was not afraid of them at all, which made the conversation very passive, and he had to express some attitude. Soo-King-hun pursed his lips and looked up at the three gangsters. If she took action now, within 3 seconds, these three people would be lying down, and it was hard to predict whether they would live or die, but at least they would be paralyzed for life. However, in order to hide herself, Soo-King-hun could not do that. She could only clench her fists and suppress her cold murderous intent. These three people must not be in trouble now. Even if she wanted to kill them, she would have to wait a few days, and they would be in other places, in a way that would not be associated with her, dead or alive. Now, she could only endure the provocation of the ants, the ignorant chirping of the toads. Miss Soo is really shy. She doesn't even say anything. The leading thug knocked on the glass of the counter, swept his eyes between the cakes and bread, and stretched out his hand to scratch a few times. This kind, and these few cakes. I want them. Pack them up. Someone has reserved them, so they can't be sold. Soo-King-hun thought that the cakes she made by herself were eaten by such people, and she felt sick and uncomfortable. Can't sell. Miss Soo-King-hun, don't force me. I don't want to break up. The gangster pounded the glass cabinet twice, and the momentum was about to break the glass. Soo-King-hun's palms trembled with anger. Her eyes gradually became cold, staring at the three gangsters in front of her, as if staring at three dead dogs. Hair still staring. Do you think we three brothers are handsome? The three gangsters were frightened by Soo-King-hun's stare, and they were a little scared in their hearts, but they thought about it. Three grown men, how could they be scared by a little girl, and immediately became fierce. If you don't want to do business, just say it. I will smash your store now. I sell. Soo-King-hun finally chose to give in. She opened a bag and packed the cakes that the gangster pointed to. It was about 3 pounds, a full bag. After packing the cakes, Soo-King-hun did not hand them to him, but put them directly on the counter. If she handed them to him, such a person would probably grab her hand, and she would definitely kill them. But in that case, this hiding place that was hard to find would be completely gone. Thanks, I'll give you money next time. The gang leader didn't care about Soo Kyung-hoon's disgusted expression. On the contrary, it can be said that seeing her cold and frosty look made him feel more comfortable. Here, try the cake that Miss Soo invited you to eat. The gang leader grabbed a bag of cakes, opened it, and signaled the two younger brothers next to him to take as much as they wanted. After the two of them started to eat, he also took a piece of cake and swallowed it in 2 or 3 bites. Oh, not bad. It's really delicious. Miss Soo is good at making cakes. It will be profitable to marry her home. Indeed. It's much better than the ones made by old man Qiu. It's a good thing that the old man is dead. The 3 gangsters ate 2 or 3 pieces of cake in front of Soo Kyung-hoon. The other 2 gangsters ate happily, but the gang leader still had a sneer on his face. After he picked up the 3rd piece of cake, he took a bite, chewed it, and suddenly frowned inexplicably. The taste is wrong. The gang leader took a look at the cake in his hand that he had taken a bite of, threw the cake directly to the ground, then took another piece, took another bite, said that this piece was not right either, and threw the cake to the ground again. Chapter 34. Blockage. What's that smell? It gets worse and worse the more I eat it. The gang leader was holding a large bag of cakes. He took out one, took a bite, and threw it away casually. He looked like he had eaten some rotten fruit, and threw them all over the floor. Poo. 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 What a disgusting smell. If you really eat it, I'm afraid it will make you sick. The gang leader threw the empty bag to the ground, deliberately took a step forward, stepped on a piece of cake, and crushed it into pieces. Miss Soo, I sincerely suggest that you don't open this store. Your cakes don't taste right. I'm afraid they will eat people badly. Soo Kyung-hoon stood behind the window, looking at the cakes that were thrown away casually on the ground. Although there was no angry expression on his face, his palms had already twisted the iron clamps into a dough twist. Naturally, Soo Kyung-hoon understood what the gang leader meant. This time, he would not make trouble, but next time he came, he would directly pretend that her cake was bad and the customer had food poisoning. If there was a commotion, her store would not be able to operate at all. If she stopped, she could get 100,000 yuan in demolition compensation. If she continued to be stubborn, she would be dead. Miss Soo, think about it carefully. The gang leader looked at Soo Kyung-hoon's expressionless face, with a malicious smile on his face. Then he kicked the cake on the ground, and turned around to leave with his 2 brothers. However, at this moment, in the darkness of the empty long street, a young man with a firm face walked out slowly. He did not dodge, but walked straight to the 3 gangsters and stopped indifferently. Hey, is the cake on the ground delicious? Huh? What do you mean? After all, the gang leader is an old man in the arena. The hostility of the other side is so obvious, how could he not feel it? He has never been afraid of others in a fight. Do you really think that the knife on his waist is just for decoration? Want to stand up for her? The gang leader pulled out a short knife and pointed the tip of the knife at Soo Kyung-hoon's position. The threat was self-evident. I have reserved cakes for this cake shop tonight. You just threw my dinner on the ground. What do you mean? Although Gluo did not watch it from the beginning, he had already understood what was going on at that moment. Because Soo Kyung-hoon was not threatened, Gluo did not rush to take action. Now that the other party has done the job, whether to leave or not, how to leave, he can't help but speak. Are you really willing to risk your life for no reason? Let me tell you, I'm Meng Wujia's man. Don't go looking for death. This block has been demolished, and even the King of Heaven can't stop it. The gang leader is not a coward, but the young man opposite him is too calm. The look he gave him was like looking at a dead person, which made people feel creepy inexplicably. Therefore, he deliberately mentioned his boss's name, trying to make the other party retreat, but unfortunately, the other party did not respond. I ask you, is the cake on the ground delicious? Gluo no longer wanted to talk to the other party. He stretched out his right hand, like a black lightning, and grabbed the gang leader's knife holding right hand, and suddenly pulled it down with force. Snap. Gluo has recently been studying traditional martial arts and combining it with modern joint techniques. This pull shows his kung fu. With a crisp snap, the gang leader's wrist joint, elbow joint, and shoulder joint on his right arm all fell off. Fuck you. Kill him. The gang leader only felt a pain, and his right arm was completely unable to move. The ferocity of years of wandering on the streets made him not only not retreat, but also called the other two to come together. However, this kind of street fighting spirit is meaningless when facing GLUO. In the dim night, GLUO slashed forward with his right hand, and the left shoulder of the gangster who rushed in front of him collapsed instantly. The distortion of the arm bone and shoulder blade made his screams particularly shrill, but GLUO did not let him go, but kicked him on the calf, causing his face bone to break directly, and the man lay on the ground unable to get up. You don't know what's good for you. GLUO slapped the gang leader in the face, knocking out half of his teeth. The man didn't even make a sound and fainted on the ground. At this time, seeing the miserable state of the leader and another companion, the last gangster didn't dare to move forward. He looked at GLUO with fear, wanting to run, but he didn't dare to run after all. Big hero, we are just errand boys. Brother Mengwu wants to demolish this street, and we are called here to do odd jobs. We are not the ones in charge. It's useless even if you kill us. Is the cake on the ground delicious? GLUO seemed not to hear the gangster's sophistry. His eyes swept across the cakes on the ground. The only gangster who was intact dared not say anything nonsense, and immediately nodded his head like hammering nails. Delicious. Miss Sue's cake is delicious. Okay then finish it. What? The gangster didn't seem to understand what GLUO meant. He raised his head, looked at GLUO's expression, and found that he didn't seem to be joking. I have reserved these cakes. You can take them away by force, but you must finish them for me. If you are short of one piece or one bite, you will die here. The expression on GLUO's face was not fierce, but a very kind smile. However, this smile was like a devil in the eyes of the gangster. He looked around and finally nodded. Hero, I can't finish it myself. Can you ask them to eat it together? The gangster already understood GLUO's punishment method. After all, he had seen ruthless people. Hearing GLUO's tone, he knew that he was not joking, and he didn't even dare to run away. Okay. Thank you, hero. The gangster walked carefully to the leader, and looked at his face which had changed color on half side, and was really scared. A kick could break an adult's leg bone, and a slap could slap a person's face like this. They couldn't stand this kind of person at all, and could only beg the other party to let him go. The gangster had an idea in mind, and made a decision. He called the unconscious leader a few words, but the person didn't wake up, so he simply slapped the leader twice, and finally woke him up. Asshole. The gangster leader wanted to curse as soon as he woke up, but was covered by Ben's mouth, and then explained the situation in a low voice. Eat it all, and let's put it aside today. If there is one bite left, I will break one of your bones. GLUO squatted down, staring at the gangster leader with half of his face swollen. Facing GLUO's cold gaze, he finally understood the situation, and nodded with trembling lips. I understand. He must be strong. The three hooligans who were arrogant just now are now more honest than sheep. It's not that they haven't seen ruthless people, but they have never seen a ruthless person like GLUO. The three of them had a feeling that, if they didn't do what GLUO did, he would really beat them to death. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35. You are a good person. The horror of death is, after all, the most deeply rooted fear of mankind. The three hooligans exchanged glances with each other, but they could not see any idea of resistance in the eyes of others. They have been bullied for so many years, but today's humiliation is more profound and painful. However, they have no choice. So, the intact hooligans supported the leader, and the other hooligans with deformed shoulder bones and broken leg bones slowly moved together. With trembling hands, they picked up the cake on the ground and ate it bite by bite. GLUO certainly didn't like this scene, but his eyes never moved away. He stood there, watching the three hooligans constantly picking up the cake on the ground and swallowing it bit by bit, as if forcing it into their stomachs. The cold wind blew, and the three hooligans couldn't help shaking. They lowered their heads, and didn't even dare to look at GLUO. The cake is actually very dry. If you eat too much, it will be difficult to swallow without water. However, no one dared to complain. Just like being tortured silently, the three gangsters endured nausea and retching, and stuffed all the 3 or 4 pounds of cake on the ground into their stomachs. Not a bit was left. Even the cake, that was trampled into mud by the gangster, was stuffed into his mouth with dirt and grass. After eating a large piece, the three of them looked around, and picked up the scattered pieces and ate them. Go away, I don't want to see you again. GLUO looked at the embarrassed appearance of the three people, and he didn't want to torture them anymore, so he let them go. Thank you. Sukinghan looked at the backs of the three gangsters fleeing. There was no expression of revenge on his face, but his brows frowned even deeper. Alas, thank you or not, it's useless to thank me. GLUO walked to the window of the small shop, looked at the solemn girl, and shook his head helplessly. Is this street going to be demolished? The government has no plans to demolish it, but this piece of land is too valuable, and many interest groups are eyeing it. Sukinghan naturally knew the specific situation. If only one real estate company wanted to develop it, she could even eliminate the person in charge. However, the situation of the old street is much more complicated and worse. Not only did many developers see this piece of land, but even many of the people in charge felt that it was a pity for this piece of land and wanted to renovate it. Demolition and reconstruction. These 4 words sound simple, but if it is done, I don't know how many families will be broken up, how many people will be rich. There are so many interest groups, and everyone who wants to move is waiting on the side. This situation is basically unsolvable. Aren't you going to move? Although GLUO didn't know Sukinghan's feelings for this store, he knew that such a remote store and such an ordinary daily life were exactly the disguise that Sukinghan needed, and she was not very willing to give up her current identity. Otherwise, these hooligans who spoke nonsense would not even come a second time, and they would have been secretly wiped out by her. I don't want to, and I don't want to. Sukinghan suddenly sat on the stool, looking at the few cakes left in the window, and slowly smiled. But what else can we do? Wait until the day when we have to leave. GLUO nodded, without commenting on Sukinghan's words. The girl's words simply sounded like the gangsters came every day, and the store would not be able to survive sooner or later, and she had to leave helplessly. However, in GLUO's ears, Sukinghan's words were not actually talking to him, but to herself. In this situation, she could do nothing but endure it. When she couldn't endure it anymore, she would show her hideousness, wipe out all those who ruined her life, and then leave. I'm sorry, I can't help you. GLUO felt a gust of cold wind. He tightened his collar, as if he had made up his mind, and exhaled forcefully. But before you have to leave, while the situation can still hold, I will stand by you. Sukinghan raised her head, not surprised by GLUO's words. She did not agree or refuse, but just looked into GLUO's eyes quietly. At this moment, under the dark sky, the lights of the cake shop were reflected in GLUO's eyes, and it looked shining. Thank you. Sukinghan suddenly stood up from the chair. She tore off a plastic sheet and took out a new clip and put the remaining cakes and bread into the bag. This is a thank you gift, no money. Sukinghan handed half a bag of cakes to GLUO, and GLUO did not refuse and reached out to take it. Okay, pack up, I'll take you back. Yeah, Sukinghan responded softly, reached out to take off her apron, turned off the lights outside, and then walked back to the inner room and began to pack up for closing the store. Perhaps because he was afraid that GLUO would wait, Sukinghan quickly turned off the lights in the inner room and walked out of the side door of the counter, carrying a stool in his hand, apparently intending to lower the rolling door. Let me do it. GLUO did not step on the stool. He jumped up directly, grabbed the handle of the rolling door, and pulled the rolling door directly to the bottom. Sorry for the trouble. Sukinghan inserted the key and locked the gate, then grabbed his head with his hand and threw his messy ponytail behind his back. You're welcome. GLUO did not show too much eagerness. Although he and Sukinghan had known each other for a while, they still didn't know each other well enough. GLUO didn't want to be too anxious, so it was just right to take it step by step. From beginning to end, GLUO suppressed his ability and only showed the qualities of an ordinary person who had practiced martial arts for a long time. However, GLUO's performance was top-notch, absolutely in line with the level of his master in Shaodao Fitness Center. In terms of martial arts, GLUO did not hide his shortcomings completely. He followed the process of making Su Qinghan suspicious first, and then letting her dispel her suspicion. With this process, she would feel more at ease. GLUO and Su Qinghan were walking one after the other. Su Qinghan was walking in front, and GLUO lagged behind her half a step. The reason why they did not walk side by side was because such an impulsive behavior did not fit his personality. Su Qinghan, which neighborhood do you live in? GLUO followed for a long time, and finally spoke, when he felt that the time was about right. But who knew that Su Qinghan seemed not to have heard him, and did not answer GLUO's words, but kept walking forward. You should already know where I live. GLUO never expected that Su Qinghan would answer like this. He paused, and Su Qinghan in front of him also stopped, and then turned around. Under the light moonlight, the girl's cheeks were a little blurry, but the girl's eyes were very bright, so bright that they seemed to be glowing. GLUO, forget it, you are a good person. Chapter 36, Why? The night was as cold as water, and there were few people on the old street. Su Qinghan put his hands behind his back, and his eyes stopped on GLUO's face, as if to emphasize the truth of his words. No, I'm a bad guy. GLUO never dreamed that he would be given a good guy card by Su Qinghan at this time. GLUO hesitated for a moment, clenched his palms and released them and clenched them again. Su Qinghan, I'm really a bad person, so I can't let it go. GLUO stiffened his neck and firmly denied Su Qinghan's evaluation of him. He said this very seriously. After all, in his heart, everything he did now was completely deception and design. If we only talk about good and bad, his behavior must be bad. After all, it is selfishness, peeping, and exploitation that drive him to continue. Su Qinghan looked at GLUO's expression of trying not to retreat, and suddenly felt an indescribable emotion in her heart. For GLUO, she probably didn't hate him. In the past few days, she has carefully investigated him. This boy who still looks childish and stubborn is already 24 years old. He is alone, and has experienced the torture of the world and the torture of people's hearts. However, for so many years, his second-year mentality seems to have never changed. If the second-year mentality of a teenager is a bit embarrassing, then when he reaches a mature age, he still holds the second-year mentality, which is probably because he does not want to succumb to the secular world and society. At this age, the second-year mentality has no illusions at all, and only sighs. He is probably not a bad person. He has no education, no family, and has traveled alone to many cities, and worked in many jobs. He counted the price of every meal with his fingers, and saved every month to pay the rent. It is hard to imagine that such a person has not learned bad things. As a worker, he is probably a slacker. However, he completed the work assigned to him well. Even after he resigned, his boss and superiors had a good impression of him. GLUO, forget it, I'm a bad guy. Su Qinghan continued the topic, as if she was playing a charade. She lowered her eyelids, shook her head gently, and her answer was still a refusal. Su Qinghan, that's great. You are a bad guy, and I'm also a bad guy. Isn't this appropriate? Of course it's not appropriate. Bad guys don't want to be friends with bad guys, and bad guys also like to be friends with good guys. Then I'll be half a bad guy, half a good guy at this moment. Both GLUO and Su Qinghan understood what they were talking about. Su Qinghan was considering GLUO's face, and didn't say the refusal so harshly, but her meaning was already very clear. GLUO just saved her, and even beat him up for her. As the person who was saved, Su Qinghan should thank GLUO no matter what. But now, in this situation, where the relationship should be closer, Su Qinghan said something to draw a line. The meaning expressed in it is actually more hurtful than giving out the good guy card. However, even in this desperate situation, GLUO still did not give up, and insisted on pretending that he did not understand the meaning of Su Qinghan's words. He also gave up, just to be a licking dog, and the kind that is not clingy. Su Qinghan, don't feel pressured, just treat me as a cake buyer. Why bother? Sukinghan didn't know why, but she was a little irritated. Normally, she had seen many people like Gluo who were clinging to her. No matter what those people said, she would not have the slightest psychological fluctuation. When they were at odds, she could say anything bad. However, at this moment, Sukinghan could not say such unpleasant words to Gluo. It was difficult to explain why. Anyway, recently, she often thought of the time when she first met him. Because of the car accident on the chaotic street, almost everyone was watching coldly, but he rushed over without hesitation and stood by her side. Even if he was bleeding, he had to save people. After saving the man, he quietly left the crowd, his palms still dripping with blood, but there was no resentment or unwillingness. If he were an ordinary person, Sukinghan felt that he could not do it, but he did it. In this world, there are still such good people who still insist on their kindness, which is really good. Gluo, why bother? It's not easy for everyone, please understand. Gluo's tone was very helpless. There are not so many things in this world that can go as planned. It's not easy for everyone, please understand. Don't push people to death. Sukinghan even heard a hint of request in Gluo's answer. Obviously, he really didn't want to break up like this. The reason why he said this was that he hoped Sukinghan would not say those words that were too absolute. If you say some words, you really can't even be friends. You're courting death. Sukinghan took a last look at Gluo, then turned around and continued to walk towards home. However, Sukinghan's pace was not that fast. Obviously, she didn't mean to deliberately get rid of Gluo, but let him follow her. That's all. Gluo sniffed and couldn't help but smile. He lagged behind Sukinghan by half a step and followed her out of the old street. The old neighborhood where Sukinghan lived was not far from the cake shop. The two of them quickly reached the gate of the neighborhood. Sukinghan walked into the neighborhood, and Gluo followed him into the neighborhood, but before they had walked far, Sukinghan stopped and turned to glare at Gluo. Just drop it off here. It's safe in the neighborhood. This neighborhood is pitch black. It's not safe. I'll drop it off at your house. Gluo now had a dead pig's expression that was not afraid of boiling water. Anyway, Sukinghan knew that he had found out her address, so what was he afraid of? He would just be a clothes-licking dog. Gluo, you are really courting death. Sukinghan stared at Gluo with a cold look. She was now sure that Gluo was definitely not Tang Zhujian's man, but it was precisely because she knew this that Sukinghan didn't want Gluo to get close to her. The people around her, too many had died, so many that she was now alone and had no friends. You will die. Sukinghan spoke each word carefully. This level of reminder actually violated her principle of hiding, but she still said it. Sukinghan, don't worry. Ever since I came to this world, I never planned to go back alive. Gluo raised his head with his chest puffed out, his eyes sparkling. Sukinghan was so angry at his performance that she laughed. The girl sighed, shook her head, and completely gave up saving Gluo. It's up to you. Don't regret it. I'm not afraid of regrets. I'm just afraid that I won't even have the memory of regrets in the future. Gluo took a step back and suddenly leaned over and bowed to Sukinghan, as if he was apologizing and as if he was asking her to give him more advice in the future. Maybe. Chapter 37. Still, Sukinghan already understood that she couldn't persuade Gluo. In this situation, no matter how she hinted, Gluo would not choose to give up unless she turned her words into blades and cut him all over. However, as an 18-year-old girl, Sukinghan, at such a bright age, had a dark heart, but it was warm after all. Thank you. Gluo already felt that the most difficult step between him and Sukinghan had been taken. His perseverance and persistence finally succeeded in clinging to the wall. Sukinghan was not the kind of person who would turn his face and not recognize her. Although she didn't show it, she remembered everything he did for her. Sukinghan, is the house opposite you still vacant? My house is due, and I want to find a house to move. When Gluo said these words, his palms were sweating. He was also nervous. The relationship between the two had just eased, and Sukinghan had already taken a step back. He felt a little bit of a nose to face when he said this now. However, Gluo still said it because it was indeed very appropriate at this time. Since Su Qinghan had already taken a step back, she might not be unable to accept it if she took another half step back. But this was a bit of a gamble after all. Su Qinghan did not answer Gluo's words. Just now, she actually didn't know whether Gluo had investigated her address. It was just that she used a trick and Gluo was exposed. Although Su Qinghan was a little reluctant about Gluo knowing her address, she was really not at the point of picking up a knife to kill people. However, what Su Qinghan did not expect was that in this situation, Gluo dared to openly say that he wanted to move to live opposite her house. Straight man for sure. To be honest, Su Qinghan did not have any good feelings for Gluo, at most he just didn't hate him. Therefore, Gluo's behavior was extremely stupid. Even if he shamelessly moved to the opposite side of her house, and then the next morning, he pushed the door and met her and said, "What a coincidence, you are actually opposite the door." To be honest, although it was extremely false, it was also considered to leave some space for each other. How could there be such a straight man as Gluo asking? Empty. Su Qinghan felt angry at Gluo's stupidity, so she answered with gritted teeth, and Gluo looked at her in confusion, not knowing what he did wrong. Gluo, think about it carefully. Is it possible for you to provoke a black character like Mengwu? You think you can fight, but how many people can you beat? How many subordinates does he have? Don't kill yourself. To be honest, I don't know. Gluo really didn't know what Su Qinghan was angry about. After all, he had never been in a relationship. There might be female colleagues among his colleagues, but it was none of his business if they were angry, and he never cared about it. But now, looking at Su Qinghan's very angry expression, Gluo felt that he was already on the edge of being cold, so he wanted to pull himself back with all his strength. But it doesn't matter whether I know or not. No matter who he is, as long as he wants to hurt you, I will always stand by your side. You are such a fool. Su Qinghan looked at Gluo's serious expression and was so angry that she laughed. Gluo's mind was really straightforward. He thought everything was too simple, and it was simple and straightforward. Forget it, whatever you want. Su Qinghan seemed unwilling to continue chatting. She turned and walked into the community. After walking a few steps, she suddenly stopped and raised her hand casually, as if saying goodbye. "I'll ask about the house for you. Don't hold too much hope. Find it yourself." Su Qinghan deliberately made her tone cold. After saying this, she didn't stop and disappeared directly into the darkness. Gluo stood there with a stunned expression on his face, as if petrified. After a long time, Gluo finally reacted. A smile appeared on his face. He put his hands on his mouth and shouted loudly, "Su Qinghan, thank you." After shouting, Gluo jumped up happily. He really didn't expect that things would go so smoothly. Su Qinghan's last words were clearly arrogant. Not only did she accept his idea of living across the street, but she also helped him find a house. It was great. More importantly, Gluo could use this incident as a pretext to invite Su Qinghan to dinner and then ask for her phone number. It's perfect. Take off. Gluo spun his hands around twice, then made an airplane pose and ran out of the community happily. "Three gangsters, thank you for your efforts. Thank you for your dedication. Thank you for your stupidity and disgust. If it weren't for them, Gluo and Su Qinghan would not be able to take another step forward. I don't know when, but with the help of external forces, this step was taken very easily. The one called Mengwu wanted to demolish the old street. Such an ambitious plan would definitely not be stopped by the injury of one or two younger brothers. In the future, there will be more and more hooligans harassing the cake shop, and even the means will be worse. Su Qinghan will definitely kill all these idiots and leave when she can no longer bear it. However, when she can still bear it, when things have not been destroyed, and when her current life can still be maintained, Su Qinghan can't do anything after all. She can only watch and bear the anger and watch them wantonly die. In this case, Gluo's role is highlighted whether he is a shield or a licking dog shield. Gluo is really useful. With Gluo, Su Qinghan doesn't need to do it, doesn't need to expose himself, and can make people who provoke him miserable. Isn't this great? Useful, but licking dog, Gluo, who has these three labels, Sukinghan can't bear to reject him from thousands of miles away. I'll take this opportunity to kick his nose and face Luo is certainly not a good person. He is willing to be used by Sukinghan now, but in the future he will earn it back 1,000 times. Sukinghan is his key to the other world. Death Return is Luo's most perfect ability to survive, and he will not allow anyone to get involved. Moving sitting on the bus, Luo was in a very excited mood. After today, Sukinghan will completely accept him. An ordinary person who can fight, and is obsessed with her. This perfect and safe personality. Sukinghan. To be honest, now thinking back, when Luo saw the cake made by Sukinghan herself being thrown on the ground in an insulting way, he was really very angry. That kind of anger was not only because of the gangster's insult to her, but also because of the hatred for her, an evolver, who had fallen to such a state that she had to endure it. And her life was already displaced. Why? Even endurance and concessions could not bring peace. Everyone is a fool. Chapter 38, Neighbors. That night, after Luo beat up 3 thugs, he did not get the revenge he imagined. Days passed by, and as December went deeper, the weather was gradually soaked by the coolness. Shadow-jin was officially on the right track, and Luo's life also had a fixed route in the ordinary. Every morning, Luo would get up early, take a car to the vicinity of Spring Cake Shop, and chat with Sukinghan for a while the cakes were not out of the oven. The topics of the chat were all prepared the night before. Luo even prepared a small notebook, not only to record the recent hot news, but also occasionally prepare a few fixed lines. After that night, Sukinghan's attitude towards Luo did not change much. However, unlike the indifference in the past, when she really talked about interesting topics, the girl would still show a shallow smile. When she smiled, she always liked to turn her body so that Luo could not see it. One day later, Luo was chatting about the news, but he forgot the words, so he took out the small notebook and took a look. This stupid behavior was naturally discovered by Sukinghan. The girl looked at him in surprise, which made Luo run away with his head in his arms. He didn't buy a cake that morning, but ate the mutton soup steamed bun that he had been craving for a long time. Of course, every night, Luo still went to the cake shop to clean up as usual. Thanks to Luo, the cakes were always sold out when Sukinghan closed the shop every day, and the turnover was far more than before. I don't know if it is a reward. Anyway, now at night, Sukinghan allowed Luo to take her home. After dark, there were not many people on the old street. The two didn't chat on the road at first, but after getting familiar with each other, they gradually had topics to talk about, and the distance that was deliberately pulled apart was slowly getting closer. Sukinghan delayed Luo for a few days about finding a house. Of course, Luo was also very cunning. He didn't mention it deliberately, but every day when buying cakes, he would always say that Sukinghan was too tired to prepare alone, and if he was hiring, he could come to do part-time work. In this way, after Luo had been grinding for a few days, Sukinghan still let Luo meet the owner of the house opposite. Because of the well-known demolition problem, the houses in the old street are actually very difficult to rent out. Except for the people who live there, most of the houses are empty, so the rent is very cheap. Luo was not interested in the house, and the landlord wanted to save the heating fee, so the rent was negotiated after a while. The next day, Luo found someone to move the house. He did not call Zuyi or Wang Zilin, but directly called a small moving company to transport the things all at once. Over the years, Luo has been traveling between various cities, and he actually has very few gifts. After moving to the new house, it actually seems a bit empty. In the early years, this old street was also the most rich place in Changlin City. The houses were at least 2 bedrooms and 1 living room. The one that Luo rented was more than 100 square meters, with 3 bedrooms and 1 living room, but the rent was more than half less than the original house. To be honest, Luo was very satisfied. This location and this price were simply too cheap. Too cheap to be normal. Sure enough, on the night of the move, Luo went out to buy things and met a gangster who was looking for trouble. This time they were not acquaintances. Luo stretched his muscles took out their money and mobile phones, and threw them into the sewer while they watched. Without deep hatred, GLUO did not want to always beat people up. If he did that every day, something bad would happen sooner or later. Therefore, GLUO only let them suffer some physical pain and some economic losses. Once or twice, they still knew how to resist. If he did it a few more times, these people would naturally avoid him. From these people, GLUO learned some inside information. The demolition of the entire old street was not something that could be taken over by one or two companies. The area was not demarcated, so naturally there was competition everywhere. The people with cards were playing games on the table, and under the table, it was these grey people who were fighting. It was definitely not a fight to the death, but there were definitely conflicts between them. Now the demolition had not really started, and the money and benefits had not been dug out, so these people were still peaceful, and they just began to intentionally drive away the residents. In modern society, the law is a high voltage line after all. These gangsters don't really dare to do anything, but even if they do nothing, you can't stand them hanging around your house all day. In the past, there were actually quite a lot of residents in the old street, but as the number of gangsters increased, most families with daughters moved out. Not to mention selling their houses, they would rather leave the place empty than live here. As a result, not only did the house prices fall a little, but the rents also plummeted. However, there were very few people who rented houses. Occasionally, there were people who came and stayed for a few days and then left after seeing the situation. The situation was so bad that GLUO had to do his job well. The day after moving, GLUO got up early and waited at the door. He waited until Soo-Kyung-hun went out and walked slowly with her to the cake shop. GLUO waited in the corridor for more than an hour, and it was not in vain. Soo-Kyung-hun told him the time to go out every day and agreed that if she opened a shop, they would go together. That night, GLUO and Soo-Kyung-hun went home together and separated on the same floor to the left and right. As soon as GLUO entered the room, he couldn't help jumping up with excitement. He clearly felt that Soo-Kyung-hun had begun to accept him. Everything was moving towards a good future. The next day, GLUO got up early, brushed his teeth, washed up, and exercised for a while. He went out in high spirits, but he didn't expect there was a note at his door. The handwriting on the note was beautiful. Soo-Kyung-hun told GLUO that she had to rush to finish her manuscript today and would not open the store. Almost without thinking, GLUO reacted immediately. This might be Soo-Kyung-hun found something and went out to hunt. Because on the note, Soo-Kyung-hun reminded GLUO not to knock on the door to disturb her. GLUO did not knock on the door and went to work in a low mood. All day, GLUO was on pins and needles when he was working. He was sure that Soo-Kyung-hun was not a writer. If she didn't open a store, she would definitely go to make big news. However, even if he knew this possibility, GLUO still didn't dare to act rashly. Because, this time, at this critical moment, everything has two possibilities. The first one is that Soo-Kyung-hun discovered something, and the situation was very urgent. So urgent that she had no time to stabilize GLUO, and she just left a note and left. The second one is that Soo-Kyung-hun was deliberately testing GLUO. On the note she left, she specifically wrote that she was writing and was afraid of being disturbed, so don't knock on the door to find her. If GLUO listened to her, then the test was passed. But if GLUO was stubborn and insisted on knocking on the door to see someone, then he would definitely be able to see Soo-Kyung-hun. But, after that, he might be directly banished to the cold palace and never have the chance to contact her again. Chapter 39, Crossing the Bridge. GLUO thought about the note for a day and finally decided that no matter what Soo-Kyung-hun did recently, he would pretend to be completely unaware. In short, whether it was a test or not, GLUO would just do it according to the answer that must be passed. With this mood, GLUO didn't even eat dinner at night. He bought some instant noodles from a small supermarket on the roadside and walked slowly home. GLUO and Soo-Kyung-hun were the only two residents in the old building where they lived. After GLUO went upstairs, he searched around the corners of the door, but didn't find the note, so he walked into the house in a depressed mood. Everything in the house was the same as before. The mechanism that GLUO deliberately hid was not triggered by anyone. Obviously, Soo-kyung did not enter his house to investigate, but was indeed busy with her own things. Don't let anything happen. Gluo was in a bad mood, and of course he didn't have much appetite for food. He sat at the computer and played a standalone game for a while. Just as he was controlling Sunset and leading Zhao Yu, Taishi Ci, and Ganning to attack Liu Bei, the door was suddenly knocked. Who is it? Gluo looked at the time and found that it was already past 8 o'clock. He walked to the door with his mobile phone, and he was actually a little scared. Me. Outside the door, Soo-kyung's voice did not have any special emotions, but it sounded very gentle. Gluo knew Soo-kyung well, and she always spoke in a cold voice under the identity of an evolver. Although she rarely expressed emotions in her words as the proprietress of a cake shop, she could hear some gentleness of an 18-year-old girl. Soo-kyung? Gluo opened the door and looked at the girl who knocked on the door with surprise. Soo-kyung stood in front of him with a relaxed look, and she rarely smiled. I was exhausted all day rushing to finish my manuscript today, and finally achieved my goal. Have you eaten? Together? Ah. You treat me? Gluo's reaction was really stupid, but there was nothing he could do, because he was scared. He had been licking Soo-kyung for so many days, and he had never seen her smile a few times, but now, she not only knocked on the door to find him, but also treated him to a meal with a smile on her face. To be honest, Gluo's first thought was whether Soo-kyung had discovered something and wanted to ask him out to kill him. Don't blame Gluo for thinking too much. In ancient times, when people invited people to dinner, they would first eat and drink well, then dancers played music, and then 500 swordsmen chopped them into minced meat. Even now, before the domestic pigs are sent out, the owner will drive them out with a kind attitude, then tie up their limbs, and give them a good knife. Of course I'll treat you. Soo-kyung looked at Gluo's silly face, and was amused by his answer. When a girl comes to you to go out for dinner, how can she ask you to treat me first? Okay. Come in. Gluo also realized that his answer was stupid at this time, but what could he say? He could only wipe his face awkwardly and let the other person come in first. No, you change your clothes. I'll wait for you outside. Okay. Gluo saw that Soo-kyung had no intention of coming in, so he didn't force it. Then the girl turned and went downstairs. Gluo closed the door and ran into the house to change his clothes. Why suddenly come to me for dinner? Gluo really didn't know what was going on. Was it a good thing or a bad thing? While changing his clothes, Gluo analyzed it for himself again. If Soo-kyung wanted to kill him because he failed the test, she shouldn't have asked him out for dinner. After all, there were surveillance cameras in the restaurant. Even if she asked him out and killed him, she would definitely be the first suspect. So, to kill him, she should have gone straight to his house and stabbed him to death. Since she didn't stab him, judging from her attitude, this was obviously a good thing. He passed the test. Favorability +1, unlocked reward, treat me to a meal. Sure enough, the note during the day was a test. Gluo was sure that Soo-kyung had installed surveillance cameras in many places. The community, the corridor, and her room were definitely all being watched. She must have known Gluo's movements in the morning clearly. Good thing before going out, Gluo encouraged himself. When he opened the door, Gluo was already smiling happily. Outside the building, the girl stood under the street lamp with a graceful figure. Gluo stepped on the spot twice, and then walked straight to her. Soo-kyung, why do you suddenly want to treat me to a meal? I'm tired from rushing to finish the manuscript today, and I want to reward myself. And, you moved here, and I welcome you. You helped me so much before, and I have to thank you. Soo-kyung deliberately slowed down her pace. At this time, Gluo walked side by side with the girl for the first time. Gluo didn't show any joy on his face, but he was actually very happy in his heart. Gluo has always followed behind Soo-kyung, which is to keep a distance and let her not be so nervous. But now, Soo-kyung took the initiative to close this distance, and with her statement this time, Gluo will no longer have to follow behind her when walking with her in the future, and he will directly obtain the qualification of walking shoulder to shoulder. How can Gluo not be happy about such a good thing? Kill 3 bads with 1 stone, 3 uses with 1 meal, you clever little ghost. GLUO doesn't really chat with girls, but after more than half a month of contact, GLUO has also discovered that Soo Kyung-hun is not very good at chatting with boys. The two stumble and make a fool of each other, but they are actually the same. Of course, those hooligans who smashed the store will still rely on you in the future. You were used by me, beaten to death, and it is really unreasonable not to treat you to a meal. Soo Kyung-hun did not hide the fact that she asked GLUO to move to the doorstep of her house, which was suspected of using GLUO. Now there are more and more hooligans and ruffians in the old neighborhood, which also shows that some of the above games have already come to an end, and the distribution of interests may have been compromised, and the cake will start to be cut with a knife. In this case, if she wants to continue to hide her identity, she must either endure the loss or need a shield. Those hooligans, actually they don't dare to do anything. I see that when they see a woman, they just talk a little and rarely touch her. It's just a compromise. Soo Kyung-hun kicked a stone away, listening to the sound of clacking and watching the stone disappear in the lawn. Those hooligans are not afraid of the law, but someone ordered them not to touch the law, otherwise it will be very troublesome. The top managers in Changlin City are not afraid of the law. They are afraid that problems will arise, and if the problems get out of hand, someone will report it to the province, and then they will all be finished. So, the managers set the rules, and don't let things get out of hand. The diners at the table are not afraid of the law. They are afraid that the managers will punish them, so they can only restrain their hands and feet and order the people at the bottom to be more careful. Soo Kyung-hun is undoubtedly a pessimist, or she has lived here for a few months and has understood the filth and dirtiness of it. Now she is naturally very angry. Chapter 40, Yunbei's Heart. In the end, the people who obey the law are not actually the people protected by the law. Isn't this very sad? GLUO didn't know whether Soo Kyung-hun's words were meant to be a metaphor, but he had to admit that there was some truth in what she said. It's just that this truth is not necessarily right. It can't be said to be sad, it can only be said that it's not satisfactory. GLUO scratched his hair. He always felt that the topic Soo Kyung-hun talked about was not as simple as it seemed. He didn't know whether he should continue or whether the world he knew was real. I remember someone told me that the most fundamental truth of this world is the law of the jungle. Carnivores hunt prey. Humans drive out herds of animals to survive and build their own cities. This is the original appearance of civilization. With civilization and inheritance, the differences between human beings began to contrast. Some were suppressed at the bottom, while others climbed to the top. Humans with different origins, experiences, and personalities built a class society based on recognition, exploitation, slavery, etc. The root of the law is to ensure the stability of this class. In other words, people at the top have to create a code to ensure the lowest compromise and give everyone an acceptable life. Only in this way can the layer of leaks that are squeezed and cut accept their fate and provide resources for the operation of society. GLUO no longer remembered who said these words to him, but he always remembered them in his heart. These things, like piled up gravel, constructed his outlook on life and values. GLUO's words were a bit messy, but Soo Kyung-hun understood. The girl turned her head and looked at him in surprise. It's a very novel theory, but I think it's right. Stability and peace are the lives that the weak desire most, but once they have power, their hearts will become restless, and they will want to climb up, to grab more resources instead of creating them through their own hard work. Soo Kyung-hun raised her hand high and made a grabbing gesture. It was the first time that GLUO saw the girl's confused expression and suddenly realized that Soo Kyung-hun was not testing anything when she said these words. She was probably just wondering why people would fight and bite each other when they were all human beings and in the same class, just like raising poison. The 18-year-old girl's mind was as soft as a cloud. In her eyes as an evolver, all ordinary people were actually the same. Beggars, rich people, and officials were just ordinary people in her eyes. Money, power, and force were just more or less resources for her. After all, she could return from death. If she wanted money, she could easily become rich enough to rival a country. If she wanted power, she could easily become a top player. She wanted force, which she could hone in countless battles, and become the best in the world. If there was no enemy, Zinky biopharmaceuticals, and if there was no evolutionary group targeting her, Sukinghan was really like a demigod to ordinary people. She could predict the future, see through people's hearts, and know cause and effect. She was obviously in a higher position. She could exploit and enslave any ordinary person, and grab resources by exploiting and squeezing, but she didn't. On the contrary, ordinary people who were equally ordinary, they fought against each other within themselves, divided into different levels, and did despicable and ugly behaviors with peace of mind, which was confusing and ridiculous. This is the inferior nature of human beings: desire, self, and fighting. GLUO turned his head quietly, looking at the girl's delicate and flawless profile, and his understanding of her was one step closer. The reason why Sukinghan has always been so cold is probably because she has seen too much ugliness and dirt in countless flashbacks. She is not really emotionless, she is just afraid of being hurt, and doesn't want to see familiar people with hideous and crazy faces again. So, she began to reject everyone, and was deeply defensive and vigilant to everyone who tried to approach her. Sukinghan, what are you going to treat me to? Barbecue? GLUO didn't want to talk about such a heavy thing, so he deliberately changed the subject. Sukinghan didn't show any surprise, but just took 2 big steps forward, and pointed to a store on the side. This? Oh, hot pot. GLUO actually likes hot pot very much. After all, it's December and the weather is a bit cold. It's just right to eat something hot. It's good. That's good. Sukinghan led GLUO into the hot pot restaurant. The girl obviously came here often. The waiter greeted them familiarly, and led the two to the second floor. GLUO, do you eat spicy food? Yes. Mutton or beef? I'm fine with anything, just take care of it. GLUO refused the menu handed over by Sukinghan, and asked her to take care of it directly. Sukinghan was not polite and quickly ordered a lot of food. GLUO, what kind of wine do you want to drink? Drinking? Anything is fine, you choose. GLUO is not a person who likes to drink. It can even be said that he rarely drinks. But Sukinghan asked this, what can GLUO say? A man can't say no. At this point, GLUO felt that something was wrong. Sukinghan invited him to dinner and ordered so many things, and the first thing he asked for was wine. This? I'm afraid something is going to happen. GLUO is not afraid that Sukinghan will take advantage of him when he is drunk and get tempted by him. He is afraid that if he gets drunk and Sukinghan asks him what he wants, he will reveal the secret directly. That's no fun. Sukinghan is too vigilant. Surveillance, telling, and searches have all been done. Just this morning, a group of tests came, and now he wants to get people drunk and listen to the truth after drinking. This heart is too dirty. I don't usually drink much, and I can't drink much. I'm happy today, so I'll drink a little. Sukinghan obviously had never competed with others in drinking. When she said this, although she deliberately disguised herself, her tone was obviously wrong. But what could GLUO say? He nodded in agreement. Me too, let's drink less. GLUO could see that Sukinghan was hanging him. The girl had already said that she couldn't drink, so why didn't he get her drunk while he was happy? What can you do? Haha. You are an evolver, you can't drink, I don't believe you. You old man, you are very bad. The restaurant served the dishes very quickly. While GLUO and Sukinghan were chatting casually, the hot pot and the ordered ingredients began to be placed on the table one by one, and 5 bottles of white wine were also served. My goodness, is this for gastric perforation? GLUO looked at Sukinghan's enthusiastic smile and felt his scalp tingling, but things had come to this point. What could he do? He had to sacrifice his life to accompany the gentleman. But, damn, this hot pot is really spicy. Ridiculously spicy. Chapter 41, The Hangman Banquet. GLUO was sure that this pot of red ink-like soup base was definitely the result of Sukinghan's high price. This is not a hot pot soup base, this is chili oil and beef bone soup. It may taste a little spicy, but the more you eat, the more delicious it will be. Sukinghan really likes to eat chili peppers. After 1 or 2 plates of meat were put into the pot and cooked, he started to eat. GLUO picked up 2 pieces, and his eyes were wide open because of the spiciness. This is too outrageous. GLUO even suspected that if the two were not evolvers, ordinary people would go to the hospital directly if they ate so spicy. But what to do now? What else can I do? I will sacrifice my life to accompany a gentleman. Sukinghan invited him to dinner, and the hot pot was on the table. He said that this pot of soup was too spicy. It was too ugly to pour it out and change it. As a man, you have to be a little cruel to yourself. GLUO also tried his best. He didn't care how spicy it was, he just stuffed it into his mouth. But you don't say, it's really fragrant, and it's more fragrant the more you eat. If it wasn't for the spiciness that hurt his tongue, GLUO really fell in love with this taste. How does it taste? Delicious. GLUO enjoyed it more and more as it ate. The hotter it got, the more delicious it tasted. He felt like he was in a sauna, with sweat all over his face. That's good. I don't know if it was the effect of the chili peppers, but Sukinghan's face was flushed, and she was finally no longer cold when she spoke. But this is normal. Even the calmest person would be furious if she ate something so spicy. What's more, Sukinghan became happier and happier as she ate. She even picked up a few chilies and chewed them. If you think it's too spicy, just drink something. It's okay. Sukinghan's words were quite caring, but the movements of her hands were really scary. The girl raised her hand and opened 2 bottles of white wine and poured a full glass for GLUO. GLUO was about to wave his hand and say he couldn't drink it, but he saw Sukinghan also poured him a full glass. Facing the girl's fair and just look, what could GLUO say? Don't say anything. Just sacrifice your life to accompany a gentleman. Congratulations on your new home. I'll drink it. You can do whatever you want. Sukinghan, who was always indifferent, also warmed up at this time. Her face was flushed, and her eyes were shining with moisture. Don't talk about others. You can eat spicy food to death. You are beautiful too. Okay. GLUO felt that the smile on his face was a little cramped, but he couldn't refute it. Sukinghan stood up and clinked glasses with him, then raised her head and drank it all. GLUO looked at the whole glass of white wine. A happy smile appeared on his face, and then he drank it directly. Good wine. GLUO couldn't really tell whether the wine was good or not. The pepper was so spicy that he almost lost his sense of taste. Drinking white wine was just like drinking water. Not to mention the taste, there was no texture at all. He was fooled. A big fool. GLUO's heart was chilling now. He felt that he was going to fail. Sukinghan had come prepared. After a few mouthfuls of such a spicy hot pot, drinking alcohol tasted like drinking cold water. He had no alcohol tolerance. He would just lie down and be done. Eat more. You ordered a lot. Come on, drink it. Sukinghan pointed at the food on the table and poured another glass of wine for GLUO generously. GLUO blinked, took a bite of meat, picked up the wine glass, and his eyes were moist. Sukinghan, don't say anything extra. Everything is in the wine. GLUO also knew that he couldn't hide. Since he couldn't hide, he would perish together. It was nothing more than a self-explosion anyway. Okay, it's all in the wine. Sukinghan didn't know if he remembered something or was hurt by the spicy pepper. Anyway, at this time, the girl's eyes seemed to be shining, beautiful and intoxicating. So, GLUO really seemed to be drunk. It could be said that he was throwing away his life, or he was unrestrained. Anyway, a pot of red soup base and cups of white wine poured into his mouth without any rejection. Drink less. If you really can't drink it, forget it. After drinking for more than an hour, Sukinghan no longer planned to pour wine for GLUO. Although he was a martial artist who practiced martial arts for many years and had a good physical fitness, this kind of high-proof white wine was actually very harmful. GLUO was in good health and could drink 1 cup after another. If he was not in good health, he would have been lying down now. It's okay. I can still drink. GLUO's speech was already slurred. He looked at Sukinghan and didn't pour him a glass of wine. He stretched out his hand to pour a glass of wine, but he stumbled and almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, Sukinghan supported him. Let's stop here today. Don't drink. It's okay. I can still drink. GLUO bent down and picked up the wine bottles on the ground. Only then did he find that all 4 were empty. He stood up swayingly, picked up the wine bottle next to Sukinghan, and poured a whole glass directly for the girl. At this time, Gluo's hands were shaking a little, and the wine was a little full, even overflowing, but Gluo didn't care, and poured himself another glass. As a result, he only poured half a glass, and it was empty. Waiter! Waiter! 2 more bottles of white wine. Gluo felt a little floating. Although his rationality was still there, his emotions had inexplicably arisen. Then, the waiter pushed the door, and walked into the room. Sukinghan didn't want to order any more, but Gluo insisted on 2 more bottles. Sukinghan couldn't resist him, so he ordered another bottle. So, the glass was filled again. Gluo, drinking too much is not good. 1 last glass. As an evolver, Sukinghan's consciousness was actually very clear. She originally just wanted to get Gluo drunk and ask him tentatively, but she didn't expect Gluo to drink so hard that he almost wanted to drink himself to death. Before, Sukinghan persuaded Gluo to drink. She meant to force him to drink, but she really didn't want to drink Gluo to death. But now, looking at Gluo's blushing face, the girl couldn't help but worry about him getting into trouble. After all, she was the one who started it all. It's okay. I can still drink. Gluo raised his hand and clinked the cup with Sukinghan's, tilted his head back, and poured it into his mouth. As a result, his hand was a little shaky, and half of it spilled, and not much actually went into his mouth. Don't drink, don't drink. Sukinghan pushed the chair away and walked to Gluo's side. She stretched out her hand and wanted to retract it, but she didn't expect Gluo to grab her hand and hold it very hard. Sukinghan, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for helping me find a house. Gluo shook his arms frantically like a child asking his parents to buy toys. Sukinghan wanted to struggle reflexively, but Gluo held it very hard. The girl was afraid of hurting him, so she didn't break free. You're welcome. You helped me, too. Sukinghan looked at the drunk Gluo and frowned with some guilt. At this time, the waiter of the restaurant seemed to have heard something, pushed the door and walked in, asking if he needed help. We are done eating. Let's pay the bill now. Sukinghan didn't want to stay here any longer. She let Gluo hold one hand, took out her phone with the other hand, and paid for the meal. Your companion drank a little too much. Do you want me to call a car for you? No. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42, Making Trouble. Sukinghan waved her hand to refuse the waiter's help and walked out of the private room carefully with Gluo by herself. You deserve it. Sukinghan was not used to others holding her hand, not to mention that the other party was a man, but at this time, Gluo was really drunk. His face was red, and he was holding Sukinghan's hand tightly while grinning foolishly. I don't know if it was because of the alcohol, but Gluo's palm was very hot. Sukinghan let him hold it, and he didn't let go, even though his palm was sweating. It was troublesome for people who drank to make trouble, and it was not a bad thing for Gluo to hold her hand so honestly. It's hot. Gluo looked very drunk, and his whole body was swaying like a tumbler, but he was in high spirits. He kept saying inexplicable words while walking through the corridor of the hotel. Today, I watched the snow drifting in the cold night with a cool heart drifting far away. Gluo was walking and suddenly started singing, and his voice was very loud and the tune was very off, which completely turned into an annoying noise. Not only that, Gluo suddenly stopped and bent down as if he was going to vomit, which scared the waiter to bring a trash can in a hurry. As a result, Gluo did not vomit, but burped and sang loudly again. We are eating. Singing your horse. What are you shouting in the middle of the night? Because he couldn't stand the noise at the door, the man in the box next to him came out. The man also drank a lot of wine and spoke aggressively. Gluo raised his head and burped again. His left hand suddenly let go of Sukinghan's hand and slapped him directly. Gluo really used all his strength in this slap. The man looked quite strong, but he didn't even have a chance to react. He was slapped to the ground and lay there in a daze. Who are you so awesome with? I just heard you yelling when I went to the toilet. You are so capable, aren't you? Fuck you. GLUO shook his head and burped violently. Then he let go of Sukinghan's hand with his right hand, blocked her with his body, and rushed towards the gangsters who were about to leave the box. Who the hell are you? What are you doing? The gangsters in the box didn't know what was going on at this time. They patrolled the territory according to the boss's requirements every day. When they were hungry at night, they would definitely get together to eat. They came to this restaurant every day and nothing had ever happened. Why did such a fierce guy suddenly appear today and start to fuck them? I'm annoyed to see you guys every day. GLUO's body didn't look strong, but when he walked forward, his momentum was like a mad bull. The two people at the outermost edge of the box came over. GLUO stretched out his hands, grabbed the hair of the two people, and pulled them hard. Two 1.8 meter tall sturdy men were grabbed by the hair by GLUO with one hand. They grabbed GLUO's hands with both hands and tried to pry his hands apart, but they couldn't move them at all. They could only bend down with GLUO pulling their hair. Come. I'll accompany you. GLUO put his hands together in front of his chest, and the heads of the two sturdy men were pulled by him, and they hit each other like two balls with a thud. People's heads are in the air, and the sound is generally dull, but these two people don't know how much force they have endured, and the sound when their heads hit each other is actually a bit crisp. There is almost no doubt that the two hooligans, who had at least a slight concussion, were stunned directly. GLUO let go of his hand, and the two people fell straight to the ground like a knocked over glass. Have fun. GLUO was so drunk that he seemed to have lost his mind. He had a smile on his face, which looked particularly creepy. Sukinghan walked in from the door and wanted to stop GLUO, but was pushed out by GLUO. Sukinghan couldn't expose herself after all, so in the current situation, she couldn't stop GLUO and could only stand in the corridor and watch GLUO's power. It seemed that they heard the chaotic scolding, and the manager and several waiters of the restaurant all ran over, but were stopped by Sukinghan, and the group didn't dare to get close. At this time, when GLUO pushed Sukinghan away, the 7 or 8 gangsters in the box had already drawn their knives, but GLUO was not afraid at all, picked up the nearest stool, and threw it out horizontally. At this time, everyone found that GLUO's strength was terrible, and they didn't dare to take the things he threw, so they could only dodge. GLUO was also crazy. After throwing 2 stools, he pulled the table for serving dishes, and picked up the heavy solid wood in his hand as a weapon. The gangster who rushed in front still had his knife raised in the air, and his face was covered with the table. In an instant, his teeth flew out like a smashed pomegranate, and half of his face was covered with some, and he lay on the ground, and couldn't get up. A bunch of rubbish. GLUO seemed to be addicted to talking. He threw away the table in his hand and smashed it onto the air conditioner with a clang, breaking half of the cabinet's air conditioner shell, and falling to the ground with a thud. Hack him to death. When the gangsters saw that GLUO had no weapon, they immediately rushed over like crazy. GLUO did not retreat but rushed forward, crashing into the arms of the nearest person, and then threw the person out as a weapon. With a crackling sound, the gangster who was thrown fell on the table. The red oil of the hot pot splashed everywhere, and the bowls and plates on the table were broken all over the floor. Enigma. At this time, the gang leader who was sitting in the main seat before had red eyes. He had drunk alcohol to begin with, and now he was bullied to the point of losing his mind. He didn't care about the severity of his attack at all, and directly chopped down with all his strength, rushing to kill the man in front of him. After GLUO showed his might, he seemed to be a little confused. He shook his head in a daze, and the gang leader rushed over and chopped GLUO's chest with a knife. A half-foot-long blade was chopped down with all his strength. Not to mention human flesh, even a wall would have a long scar. There was no doubt that GLUO's chest was directly cut open. From the left shoulder to the ribs, the skin was broken, the flesh was turned over, and blood began to flow out instantly. GLUO was chopped by the knife, and screamed in pain. The injured GLUO not only did not shrink back because of fear, but became extremely terrifying like an angry beast. At this moment, looking at GLUO's hideous face, the gang leader who chopped him with a knife, was also startled and sobered up instantly. He often chopped people, and he had some estimation of his strength just now. The knife just now was actually aimed at the man's neck. If the knife was chopped, it would hit the aorta, and the man would die. However, just before the blade fell, the man suddenly straightened his chest strangely, avoiding the inevitable death. So, the knife did not fall on his neck, but went straight down from his chest, bleeding all the way. Chapter 43, Aftermath. How is it possible? The gang leader didn't know how many people he had chopped. He was sure that the knife he used all his strength just now would definitely be so deep that the bones could be seen, and it was possible to see the internal organs. However, at this moment, the skin and flesh on the young man's injured chest were indeed cut open, and the wound looked extremely terrifying. But, this only looked terrifying, and it was not a serious injury at all. As if driven by fear, the gang leader faced GLUO's mad beast-like expression at this time, and forcibly suppressed the fear in his heart, and chopped GLUO's neck with the knife in his hand diagonally. This knife was a real cut, and it was a direct decapitation. Even if you have superpowers, you can't survive. However, the gang leader overestimated himself after all. He just raised his arm, and didn't swing it down, and the figure in front of him had already grabbed his right hand holding the long knife. Snap. GLUO held the gang leader's hand, and with just a squeeze, the gang leader's 5 fingers became deformed, and the knife he was holding fell directly from his hand. The next moment, GLUO held the gang leader's arm with both hands, and twisted it suddenly, just like the scene when a towel soaked in water is wrung out. The gang leader's arm instantly twisted and deformed, the flesh and bones were torn apart, and the shoulder joint at the end also broke in half from the middle with a crisp sound. Die. GLUO let go of the gang leader's arm, grabbed his head with one hand and his shoulder with the other, pressed down, and suddenly pushed his knee up. The sound of a heavy hammer hitting a drum sounded, and the gang leader spit out a mouthful of sour water with a puff, and the expression on his face seemed to solidify, still staying in the appearance of being twisted by pain. Then, GLUO let go of his hands, and the gang leader fell to the ground with a bang. That kind of fall was not a conscious landing at all, but like a sack being thrown down. The sound was extremely dull. The gang leader fell to the ground, not even screaming in pain. He lay on the ground, his chest was visibly sunken, and his body moved very little when he breathed. This scene was too creepy. It was not the noisy and crazy scene of a slashing man. Blood splattered. An adult went from extremely active to extremely quiet in an instant. The great power represented by it had already stunned all the gangsters in the private room. As if the pause button was pressed, the remaining 7 gangsters just held their knives and stood in various corners of the room. Their expressions were still on the fierce scene, but no one moved forward anymore. They all stopped. On the other side, the waiter and manager who rushed over were also stunned. They no longer had the idea of stopping the fight, but instead they all unconsciously stayed away. Several customers who came out of other private rooms out of curiosity did not dare to look out to watch the fight at this time, and all moved their eyes elsewhere. Only Sukinghan, she who had experienced countless big scenes, made the most correct choice at the first time. Are you okay? Sukinghan really didn't expect that the situation would take such a sharp turn for the worse. Of course, she couldn't stand by and watch this kind of scene. The girl rushed into the room, grabbed the panting GLUO, and dragged him out. It hurts. At this time, GLUO seemed to have vented half of his anger, and his whole strength was weakened. Sukinghan held his hand, and he couldn't break free for a while. He could only be dragged out of the hotel like a disobedient child. The injury is okay, nothing serious. As soon as Sukinghan pulled GLUO out of the hotel, he immediately dragged him to a place next to him where there was no surveillance. The girl took out her mobile phone, used a flashlight to check it out, and finally relaxed in her heart. Finally, it didn't get to the worst situation. Although GLUO's chest was chopped solid, he should have consciously dodged at the time, so the gang leader's knife didn't cut solid, but only tore a large wound at the tip of the knife. Although the blood is flowing horribly now, it's just a flesh wound. There's no big problem, and no one will die. Things shouldn't be too troublesome. Sukinghan glanced at the hotel, and found that it was in a mess. The manager of the hotel began to call the emergency number, and the gangsters contacted the boss to seek a solution. Sukinghan, it hurts so much. Luo seemed to feel very uncomfortable and wanted to touch the wound with his hands, but he didn't expect Su Qinghan to grab both of his hands, push forward, and press Luo against the wall. Don't mess around. Su Qinghan looked at Luo with a complaint, but she couldn't ignore him. The girl quickly took out the bandage, roughly tied Luo's wound, and pulled him home. Considering some possibilities, Su Qinghan took some detours and chose places without surveillance. Fortunately, some groups broke most of the surveillance in order to carry out pre-development harassment. Although it was a detour, it wouldn't take too much time. Su Qinghan pulled the staggering Luo, and his thoughts were still smooth. The girl thought carefully and was basically sure that the gangster leader was not dead, but he must be disabled for life. Luo broke one of his arms, not to mention that Luo's last elbow directly broke the man's chest. He must have suffered a large area of sternum and rib fractures, but his internal organs should be ruptured at most and can be saved. As long as the person can be saved, the situation will be very different. Things cannot be considered one-sidedly. We must look at the whole picture. The big group wants to develop the old street, and it relies on the dirty means of roaming around in a chaotic manner to harass the residents in the early stage. This is a big problem in itself. Now, a gangster was beaten and seriously injured. If the other party pursues this matter, it is very likely that the pickled things they did will also completely explode with the investigation of the case and eventually become a social problem. In that case, the government, as the guardian of order, will have to take action. The group's troubles may not be as simple as a subordinate being beaten. If it goes wrong, hundreds of millions or billions of investments and profits will be wasted. Therefore, in this case, the most likely thing the other party will do is to keep the peace and then retaliate afterwards. They themselves represent the dark side of society. They are used to repaying tooth for tooth, blood for blood, and they take pleasure in it. Perhaps, whether it is the leader of the gangs or their boss, letting the law try Luo would at most mean a few years in prison for causing serious injuries. But if they come, the result would be at least crippling him and at most beating him to death. Isn't this more satisfying than imprisoning him for a few years? Thinking of this, Su Qinghan was no longer worried, or she was not worried from beginning to end, but she just didn't want to take the worst path. After all, Luo, got drunk and beat people like that. Why should he let her die once to make amends? I hope this will be the result. Otherwise, you are sentenced. I really don't know whether to go back and save you. Chapter 44. It's your own fault. Under the bright moonlight, Su Qinghan looked at Luo's drunken appearance and couldn't help showing a complaining expression. She raised her hand and hit Luo's shoulder, but Luo turned his head and showed a silly smile. So, the girl couldn't help it, and a brilliant smile bloomed on her cheeks. On weekdays, Su Qinghan was like wrapping herself in a thick shell, always keeping an unapproachable distance from others, and a relationship without any need to worry about. In front of other people, the girl rarely showed her expression. Most of the time, her expression was a false interpretation, in order to interfere with the other party's judgment and test the information she wanted. And now, except for the drunk Luo, there was no one else around. Su Qinghan didn't need to pretend herself, because no matter what she did, Luo would not know or remember. Of course, he had no idea how cute and gentle the girl was at that moment. In the silent night, Su Qinghan dragged Luo for nearly half an hour before finally returning to the old building where they rented. The stairs of the old building were a bit narrow, and it would be crowded for two people to walk side by side, but it seemed dangerous to let a drunk person walk in front or behind. Luo, it's time to go up the stairs. Be careful. Su Qinghan stomped on the ground, making the sensor light in the corridor light up, and then she supported Luo and started to go upstairs carefully. Su Qinghan, no one knows drinking better than me. Luo was supported by Su Qinghan and started to go up the stairs, but he was not at ease at all. He was either mumbling or shaking his body. His clothes rubbed against the handrail of the stairs, and there were dust all over them. Be honest. Su Qinghan was convinced by Luo, just like a hyperactive child. Now that there was no one around, she didn't have to worry about anything. She directly used her true power to carry Luo up the stairs. I'm hurt. My chest hurts. Gluo leaned on Sukinghan like a boneless person. The girl smelled the alcohol on his mouth, rolled her eyes, knocked his head, and dragged him to the door of the house. Stand still. Sukinghan let Gluo grab her left hand and held Gluo's chin with her right hand to make him stand up straight. Then she patted his clothes and cleaned up the dust on the stair railing. Where are your keys? I don't know. Gluo dragged out a long tone and smiled like a child. Sukinghan sighed, rummaged in his pocket, and took out the key to the door. I really deserve it. Stand still. Sukinghan supported Gluo with one hand and opened the door with the other hand. When the drunk Gluo saw the door open, he immediately started to walk in, but he didn't notice the threshold and almost fell to the ground. You are so stupid. Sukinghan was really helpless with Gluo. She looked at the staggering Gluo with hatred and simply picked him up, then rushed into the bedroom and threw him on the bed. Be honest, don't move. Sukinghan broke free from Gluo's hand, took off his shoes, and let him lie comfortably on the bed. Then the girl quickly left the room and walked towards her own room. Half a minute later, Sukinghan walked back to the bedroom with the first aid kit. This time, she closed the door and didn't seem to plan to leave immediately. Well, I'm so thirsty. Water. Gluo lay on the bed and began to hum again. Sukinghan put down the first aid kit and glared at Gluo fiercely, but there was still nothing she could do. She could only go to the living room to pour a glass of water for Gluo and return to the bedroom. Drink some water. Sukinghan sat on the bed and helped Gluo sit up. As soon as Gluo's lips touched the water, he immediately began to drink it in big gulps and drank it all in one breath. Gluo, are you still drinking? Yes, yeah. Sukinghan felt that she was so unlucky. The original plan was very beautiful. She wanted to get Gluo drunk and then ask him to see how he felt and whether he could be trusted. But now it seems that she has done it all herself. There are so many ways to test and ask questions. Why did she want to hear the truth after drinking? It made things so complicated and might even cause her own death. What a sin. Sukinghan felt exhausted physically and mentally, but she still did not abandon Gluo. Instead, she brought another glass of water and helped him drink it up. Fortunately, this time, Gluo did not want to drink anymore. It's okay, at least I didn't vomit. Sukinghan put the glass of water on the table beside the bed, reached out to support Gluo's head, let him sit up, and then carefully took off his coat. There was a lot of blood on the coat. Sukinghan did not throw it on the ground, but went to the bathroom, put water in the basin, and soaked the bloody clothes in it. After soaking the clothes, Sukinghan walked back to the bedroom, opened the first aid kit, found a pair of scissors, carefully cut open Gluo's autumn clothes, and removed all the bandages that had been wrapped around him. Gluo had been injured for more than half an hour, and the blood not only soaked his clothes, but also dyed the bandages red. Sukinghan frowned, threw the long bandages into the trash can, and carefully checked Gluo's wound. Gluo was not a fat man, but he had practiced martial arts for many years, so his muscles were of good quality and toughness. The knife grazed his left shoulder and went diagonally from the chest to the ribs. The entire wound was about half a centimeter deep and less than 40 centimeters long. It was possible to recover by applying medicine and bandaging, but it would definitely take a long time and leave a huge scar. Sukinghan turned on the light in the bedroom, took out a special needle and thread from the first aid kit, and prepared to suture Gluo's wound. However, when Sukinghan tore off the bandage, he almost tore open Gluo's scabbed wound again. Although he was still drunk, Gluo could feel the pain. He squirmed on the bed like a maggot, and his hands and feet were not honest at all. I really admire you. Sukinghan had already threaded the needle and thread, but she saw Gluo's posture and knew that she couldn't sew it directly, otherwise it would be very difficult. The girl was not a person who had many scruples. She took out 2 ropes and tied Gluo's hands and feet directly to the 2 ends of the bed, making his whole body into a 1 shape. Bear the pain and don't scream, or I'll block your mouth. Sukinghan looked at Gluo squirming on the bed like a maggot and couldn't help laughing. She actually thought about blocking Gluo's mouth, but she felt that it was too bad and a bit perverted, so she gave up. As for disturbing the neighbors, Soo-kyung was not worried. There were only 2 families in the building, and there was no one to disturb. Disinfected, Soo-kyung held the alcohol cotton and began to wipe Gluo's wound. Feeling the pain, Gluo began to struggle, but because he was tied up tightly, it did not affect Soo-kyung. Moreover, Gluo unexpectedly did not shout, but just kept whispering something. Chapter 45. Maybe. Although Soo-kyung seemed to have a bad attitude towards Gluo, at this time, the girl was very serious about disinfecting Gluo's wound. Blood kept flowing out from the cut flesh and soon dyed the alcohol cotton red. The scene looked very scary, but Soo-kyung seemed to be unaware of it, and her movements were professional and gentle. Considering the problem of bacterial infection, Soo-kyung disinfected twice, and then picked up the special needle and thread, and began to suture Gluo's wound. Soo-kyung obviously learned needlework, and she was very skilled in needlework, especially the fine and neat stitches, which looked inexplicably beautiful. This should be enough. Soo-kyung looked at the sutured wound, picked up the alcohol cotton again, disinfected the whole thing, and then began to carefully apply her special ointment, and wrapped it with bandages layer by layer. When Soo-kyung completely treated Gluo's wound, it was already late at night. Soo-kyung packed up the blood-stained debris and left the room with the first aid kit. Not long after, Soo-kyung came in with medicine. She untied Gluo's hands and feet and carefully rubbed the parts that didn't bleed. The girl was very experienced in tying people up, so it wouldn't matter if she didn't rub them. Gluo, it's time to take the medicine. Soo-kyung shook Gluo awake, dragged him up, fed him several kinds of medicine she brought, and then let him lie down again, watching him fall asleep again. Logically speaking, since Soo-kyung had already treated Gluo's wound, it would be okay for her to leave now, but the girl didn't leave. Instead, she moved her chair, sat next to the bed, and began to look through her mobile phone. Soo-kyung thought that her ability to treat wounds was already professional, and she could handle even small operations easily, but Gluo's room was not a sterile operating room after all. The most common problem after wound suture is bacterial infection. Although Soo-kyung had fed Gluo anti-inflammatory and antibacterial drugs, considering the worst case, the girl decided to stay here for one night. If Gluo didn't have a fever, or had a low fever, it would be fine. Once he had a high fever, she would have to wait for him to go to the hospital and hand him over to a professional doctor. Of course, going to the hospital is also troublesome. First of all, the wound is difficult to explain, and going to the hospital may leave traces. If Tang Zujian touches it, this hiding place that has been found with great difficulty will be over. However, no matter what, human life is at stake. Soo-kyung has too much blood on her hands. She will not let go of anyone who should be killed, and she will never show mercy when she kills. However, it is precisely because she has killed too many people that Soo-kyung cherishes every life more. Every person is born after 10 months of pregnancy with the sperm of the father and the blood of the mother. From opening eyes to standing upright, from babbling to the rising sun of youth, it takes 10 years to grow a tree and 100 years to cultivate a person. Every person consumes a lot of resources and emotions before finally burying the seeds of the times. Killing is just a moment, but what is destroyed is the accumulation and growth of 10 or even dozens of years. Countless cause and effect ties are broken, and the butterfly effect triggered, maybe the collapse of several families. Because he is an evolver and has power, Soo-kyung is more cautious and self-reflective. Because of countless death flashbacks, Soo-kyung had the opportunity to examine herself more clearly and understand herself more clearly. She had messed up too many things, killed too many lives, and made too many irreparable mistakes. From a long time ago, Soo-kyung knew that one day, she would not die well, a miserable and sad death. Because she was a person stained with sins and karma. Just consider it as my atonement. Soo-kyung put down her phone, reached out to feel the temperature on Gluo's forehead, and then touched her own forehead, and her heart settled down later. Now, Soo-kyung thinks that she already knows Gluo very well, and his thoughts about her are obvious. She has encountered such attitudes and actions too many times. However, unlike before, Soo-kyung has made up her mind to accept him, or use him. Zinke Biopharmaceuticals, that is, Tang Zujian was in a secret laboratory in Changlin City. Su Qinghan searched for several months before finally finding some clues. But before she could continue to investigate, Tang Zujian had cut off all the connections and temporarily sealed it off. If she wanted to find out the specific location, she would not be able to get any results within a few months. Moreover, Tang Zujian had already built a larger and more rigorous research institute in Shanghai City. Of course, it could also be seen as a more strict prison. If Mu Yingluo was transferred there, Su Qinghan was sure that no matter how many times she went back, she would not be able to rescue her from the net. Therefore, the transportation process would be Su Qinghan's best chance to rescue Mu Yingluo. Su Qinghan had already made plans to leave Changlin City. According to her estimation, the departure time of Mu Yingluo's transportation should be right after the Spring Festival, because at that time, there were the least cars on the road and there was no need to worry about congestion. So, at most 2 months. Su Qinghan looked at Jieluo's sleeping cheek, feeling a little guilty and a little sad. A long time ago, she swore that she would never involve anyone in her war again. But this time, she still involved him. Fortunately, in 2 months, she will quietly leave, disappear from his life completely. Maybe, she will leave him a short apology letter. I don't know. After reading her letter, will he hate her, or accept her apology with tears? Will he cry? Maybe, 1 day, 10 days, 1 month, half a year, 1 year, he will still remember her, even miss her all the time. But in the days, when he misses her all the time, she will be gradually forgotten by him. 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. It may not take that long. He will forget her, even forget her. He will meet a girl who makes his heart beat again, and he will want to be as attentive to her as before, and do many stupid things, like he did to her. Maybe they will separate, maybe, they will be together. Then, they may form a family, have a lovely child, support each other, and grow old together. Maybe, one day, he will think of her, tell her to his wife and his children, and tell a story of meeting, but parting. What am I thinking about? Su Qinghan laughed, and hit her head. She looked down at her phone, but suddenly found that there were water drops on the screen. It turned out that, she cried too. It was not sentimentality, nor was it fantasy. Although she was only 18 years old, she had experienced much more than 18 years through death and return. She was still young, but her heart was already bruised and battered. She longed for warmth, a fire that could be preserved, but unfortunately, she didn't have it, and couldn't have it. GLUO, we are all fools. Chapter 46, Close. The first feeling, after waking up from being drunk is usually thirst. GLUO opened his eyes in a daze, and tried to sit up, but he felt a sudden pain in his chest, and lay down again. Awake. Thirsty? Yeah. GLUO's mind was still muddled. He heard the voice beside him, and nodded without thinking much. Then, the figure in the room left the room. When he came back, he brought him a glass of water, walked to the bed, and helped him sit up. Thank you. GLUO raised his head, and drank the water. His brain seemed to be moisturized, and gradually regained consciousness. GLUO raised his head, and looked at the delicate face of the girl in front of him. The cup in his hand fell down suddenly, but fortunately, Su Qinghan reacted quickly enough. She grabbed the cup in the air, and kept it steady, so that the quilt was not stained with water drops. What's wrong? Are you stupid? Su Qinghan, what's wrong with you? GLUO stroked his head and frowned. The sequelae of being drunk were really uncomfortable. When he tried to recall, his head felt like being hit by a hammer. Do you remember? Su Qinghan shook the cup in his hand, his expression unexpectedly gentle. GLUO blinked, and gradually remembered everything that happened before, but before he could ask, Su Qinghan had already left the room with the cup. A moment later, Su Qinghan brought back another cup of water, and this time, because of the hot water, the water temperature in the cup was slightly higher. Thank you. GLUO took the cup of water, but did not drink it all in one gulp. Instead, he held the cup, and drank it sip by sip. Under the effect of the hot water, GLUO's body felt warm again, and he felt much more comfortable. Don't worry, drink it slowly. Su Qinghan sat back in the chair beside the bed, and put the phone in his pocket. Gluo leaned against the bed, drinking hot water, while sorting out his thoughts. No one spoke between the two, and the atmosphere gradually calmed down. Do you need more? Thank you, but no. Gluo had not planned to bother Sukinghan all the time, but he did not expect that when he finished drinking the water, Sukinghan naturally reached out to take the still warm cup and put it on the small table beside him. What time is it? Gluo glanced out the window and found that the sky was already dark. He didn't know that he had slept day and night upside down. It's 7:30. You slept until this time last night. I really did a lot of stupid things. Gluo rubbed his forehead, seeming to regret what he had done. Sukinghan didn't dwell on this too much, but told Gluo her opinion. Those people you beat up were injured, but they won't die. I guess, for the sake of the subsequent development of the old street, those people won't call the police, but revenge is certain. Very fair, I can accept it. Gluo nodded slightly after hearing Sukinghan's analysis. He was not a fool, nor did he believe it, just because others said it. Gluo had already estimated the situation of the old street, and the outcome of this matter was not unexpected to him. If they don't call the police, let them do whatever they want. From the beginning to the end, Gluo's attitude towards this matter was that he was most afraid that the other party would call the police. The violent machine of the country could not be shaken by anyone, even any single evolver. No matter what Gluo thought, facing absolute power, he would put away his fangs and bear the judgment of the law with peace of mind. However, both parties were drunk, and the other party used a knife to kill people. Gluo fought back, after being injured, in order to stop the other party from continuing to commit crimes. Although the result caused the other party to be seriously injured, it was at most excessive defense, which was completely reasonable. Gluo has a good understanding of the law. This kind of rule, which is to maintain the stability of society, constrains the lowest line of morality. As long as no one dies, there is always room for mediation. And Gluo has always grasped this measure very well. For example, this time. Sukinghan, thank you. Sukinghan certainly didn't know what Gluo was thinking in his heart. All she could see was Gluo's sincere apology. He lowered his head and glanced at his chest wrapped in bandages with a bitter smile. You're welcome. Just consider it a return gift. What return gift? A return gift for using you as a shield. After all, Sukinghan is not a person who will do anything to achieve her goal. She really needs Gluo's protection so that she can continue to live a stable life under the harassment of the gangsters, but she disdains to pretend to be moved like a scheming bitch, but she completely leaves out the words. Not really not. I just saw injustice and came to the rescue, or I'm a hero saving a beautiful girl, and I'm willing to sacrifice my life for her. Gluo looked at Sukinghan's serious expression and smiled embarrassedly. He is not a good person, but he is not the kind of person who would pretend to be a good person after being a whore. Sukinghan, like I said before, I'm not a good person either. To put it bluntly, if you were an ugly guy, I would definitely stay away from you and would never come over to help you. Everyone has desires, and I'm even more loyal to my desires and willing to fight for them. I beat up those 3 thugs that day not only to avenge you, but also for the justice and fairness in my heart. Besides, I hit them so hard, and I understand the consequences. Plus this time, I was drunk, and beat people like that. Revenge will come sooner or later, and there may be more than one group of people. To put it bluntly, regardless of whether I help you or not, I will never reconcile with them. Gluo spoke in a very frank tone. Sukinghan listened to his straightforward and heartfelt words, and couldn't help rolling his eyes, and then smiled lightly. You are very good at making excuses. I can't help but nod my head. It's okay. After all, I didn't do my homework in the past. When the teacher asked me why, I could always make up a reason. Gluo shrugged his shoulders. Because of his interference, the atmosphere between the two finally eased. Of course, no matter what reason I make up, I will be punished to stand in the end. Oh, no wonder you are not short at all. Sukinghan was no longer entangled in the previous topic at this time, but laughed and joked. Gluo didn't react at first. He stared and was stunned for a while before he realized that Sukinghan was telling a cold joke again. Standing every day will make you taller. What's wrong? Is there something on my face? Su Qinghan looked at Luo staring at her blankly, but she didn't dodge or blush. Her appearance has always been like this, and she has been accustomed to the attention of others. No, I'm very happy to be able to talk to you like this. Luo actually wanted to say that you are more beautiful than flowers, but when the word came to his lips, he still didn't say it. It was rare for their relationship to go further, so he couldn't push it any further. Su Qinghan, how long have you been looking after me? Have you not slept for a whole day and a night? Chapter 47, Tenderness. It's okay. I often write novels late at night, and I'm quite good at staying up late. Su Qinghan hadn't slept for more than 30 hours, but she didn't look tired at all. The girl's skin was still fair and moist, and there was no smell of alcohol on her body, as if it wasn't her who drank with Luo last night. Thank you. Luo really didn't expect that Su Qinghan would stay up all the time and stay by the bed to look after him. When he just finished drinking, he was actually somewhat rational, but after lying on his bed, Luo's mind disappeared, and he didn't have any memory at all. You're welcome. Su Qinghan didn't refuse this time. She smiled and accepted Luo's thanks, then took out her mobile phone and looked at the watch. It seems like it's time for you to take medicine. What medicine? Antibacterial and anti-inflammatory medicine, and some vitamins. Su Qinghan got up and poured a glass of water for Luo and put a bunch of Chinese patent medicines in front of Luo. Now Luo has woken up and has no fever. The most dangerous situation has passed, but he still has to take a lot of medicine, and in order to recover from the wound, special nutrition must be considered. So many? Luo looked at the mountain of pills and tablets, wondering if Su Qinghan was going to poison him. With so many pills, taking them all, is this any different from having dinner? That's all. Eat them all. Don't leave any. Su Qinghan picked out a few dark colored pills from the mountain of pills and put them in Luo's left hand, and then stuffed the water cup into his right hand. Very expensive. Okay. Luo nodded immediately when he heard Su Qinghan say that these pills were expensive. He was a child from a poor family and couldn't stand waste the most. Su Qinghan was watching from the side, and Luo couldn't be sneaky, so he could only bite the bullet and be a hero. He chewed and ate several pills in one breath. The taste was a bit strange, not delicious, but not unpalatable. Take all the pills. I'll go make some food. After Su Qinghan confirmed that she had taken the most important pills, she didn't plan to stare at him anymore. Luo looked up at her, opened her mouth, wanted to say something, but didn't say it after all. Su Qinghan seemed to understand what Luo wanted to say. She shook her head and didn't let him continue. Instead, she turned and left the room. You are already so old. What am I afraid of? Luo watched Su Qinghan leave, grabbed a handful of medicine in his hand, stuffed it into his mouth very fiercely, and swallowed all the medicine with a gulp of water. In the vagueness, Luo felt a little cool on his cheeks. He wiped his face and felt the wetness. He seemed to cry. Since the age of 14, Luo has been a lonely person. Luo no longer has the memory before awakening his innate ability. The farthest thing he can remember is the morning of the day he became an evolver. He opened his eyes and saw a big mosquito on the roof. Later, he looked for it for a long time, but he didn't find it after all. It sucked so much blood and ran away alive. It is really a lifelong shame. Luo is not afraid of fierce or vicious people. He is most afraid of gentle people, those who are not for self-satisfaction, but are truly gentle. Because gentle people usually have very few words. They will not say that they empathize with you, nor will they say that you are pathetic and pitiful. They will only look at you with light in their eyes. Gentle people always have the power to warm people's hearts in their eyes. They will look at you with full of expectations and encouragement, expecting you to stand up alone, encouraging you to face the pain and not give in. He will not teach you anything all the time. He will only do it silently and take care of you with actions. He is like your family and your friend, very close, but not too close to make you nervous. Gentle people always have indescribable power in their words and deeds, like the cool breeze in summer and the warm sun in winter. They will not give you luxury, but let you feel the beauty of life. The backs of truly gentle people are as majestic as a mountain. They will walk in front of you and let you watch how they cut through the thorns. It is not to protect you from the wind and rain, but to tell you that he can move forward and you don't need to retreat. There are always very few people like this in the world, but whenever he meets one, Giallo will be very scared, afraid that he will rush into his arms, hug him, and cry hysterically, telling him all his grievances and efforts, persistence, and regrets. A gentle person is like a mirror. He allows you to see yourself clearly and everything in the past. Facing him, you are like facing the person you love most in your memory and the person who treats you best. You can act like a spoiled child or thank him at will, because he will always accept it, will stroke your head, and say that he heard, knew, and understood. Seeing him, you will also be like seeing the people you have hurt, those people you have felt guilty for your whole life, but you can't express your apology. Looking at him, you can confide all your sins and regrets. You can apologize loudly. You can cry and say sorry. You can tell him that on that day, you didn't want to say that, didn't want to do that, but you were cowardly and didn't have the courage to break free. Facing the collapse of you, a gentle person will always hug you, stroke your back, and tell you that he heard, remembered, and accepted it. He will not forgive you on behalf of those who have been hurt by you, but he is willing to listen, willing to wait for you to finish telling everything, and then quietly accompany you until you fall asleep. This world is too cruel and cruel. Everyone is covered with scars and suffering, as if wandering alone in the dark, walking along the way, falling all over the body, and getting bruised and swollen. But because they keep walking, they will not stop. They will only wipe away their tears, endure the pain, and limp forward. In the hearts of such people, gentle people are always scary, because they will give you the most precious understanding and understanding. They are like a beam of light in the darkness. After seeing such a beautiful scenery again, the darkness will become more painful if you move forward in the future. Because I have felt it before, it is hard to forget it. Because I have always remembered it, I'm more desperate. In the future, I will never meet such a person again. I'm starting to get scared. Giallo stuffed the medicine into his mouth one mouthful at a time. He seemed to not feel the bitterness and ate it all without stopping. Giallo stretched out his hand to wipe his tears, pursed his lips, and did not make any sound. When a person breaks down, it may be just because of a small thing, and the tears flow silently. At that moment just now, Giallo felt the feeling of family from Sukinghan. Really, just like family. Countless times at night, Giallo woke up from his dreams, feeling lost. He always fantasized that, as soon as he opened his eyes, someone held his forehead, said that his fever had subsided, handed him a glass of water, and asked him what he wanted to eat. Then, he would say a lot of things he wanted to eat, lie on the bed, cover his neck with a quilt, and wait warmly. Not long after, the kitchen was filled with fragrance, the sun shone through the window, time seemed to slow down, everything, beautiful like a dream. Unfortunately, this is really just a dream. I'm too young, I don't even know how to love her. Chapter 48, We Will Be Friends. That day, Giallo ate the meal made by Sukinghan for the first time. Due to the limited ingredients, the girl only fried a beef and green pepper, a plate of hand-shredded cabbage, and then cooked rice, and made a light seaweed egg drop soup. Although he took a lot of medicine, Giallo still ate a lot when he had dinner. As a result, he was so full that he lay on the bed and couldn't move. He looked very funny. After dinner, Sukinghan accompanied Giallo for a long time. Because Giallo was injured, he stayed in bed without moving. Sukinghan sat on a chair, holding a playing card, and played catfishing with him. Both of them had a lot of fun. At first, they put notes on the paper. Later, because Giallo's face was covered with notes, they changed to playing with his head. As a result, Giallo, who was defeated in the end, had a red forehead. Late at night, Sukinghan watched Giallo take a lot of medicine, took his temperature, boiled a pot of water, put it on the side table, and then waited until Giallo fell asleep, and then she left. After that day, the relationship between the two did not seem to have made any progress, and it returned to the way it was before. Giallo still got up early every day, and went out with Sukinghan. But what was different from before was that they had breakfast together. Sukinghan was the one who chose the store, and Giallo followed her taste. After breakfast, if there was enough time, Gluo would accompany Sukinghan to the store. The girl started making cakes, and Gluo chatted with her beside her. Later, Gluo volunteered to help, and Sukinghan couldn't get rid of him, so he asked him to do some preparations before business. In the first few days, Gluo was still busy, but after getting used to it, everything was easy. Because of Gluo's help, Sukinghan no longer asked him to pay for cakes every morning. If Gluo wanted to eat, the girl would give him a lot of cakes after they were baked, and even prepare the ones for his colleagues. In the evening, Gluo would always get off work first. The business of Shaodao Fitness Center was getting better and better, especially on the Chuanwu side. The enthusiasm of all the instructors to attract students was getting higher and higher. Compared with before, everyone's salary doubled. Gluo now sits in the office every day, his mind full of carnival, after receiving his salary. It is the first time in so many years that he has seen so much money. Every day after get off work, Gluo will stay in the cake shop with Sukinghan, and it will be open until about 8 or 9 o'clock, and then they will start to close the shop. Then the two of them will take the remaining cakes and walk home leisurely. I don't know if Sukinghan deliberately reduced the number. Now there are fewer and fewer cakes left every day, but there will be at least 2. On the way home, Gluo and Sukinghan each held a piece of cake, looking like 2 little squirrels chewing hazelnuts. After December, the weather is getting colder and colder, and the time of darkness is gradually advanced. Considering safety factors, Sukinghan changed the closing time of the cake shop to a fixed 8 o'clock. Gluo didn't have much praise for this. When he returned home, the two of them separated completely. They could still chat together in the cake shop, and they were happy, even if it was cold. It's a pity that Sukinghan has made up his mind, and Gluo didn't bother her much. After all, Sukinghan may have important things to do after returning home, and he shouldn't make things difficult for her. In terms of the time they spent together, the relationship between the two seemed to have not changed much, and the mode of getting along was the same old one. Every time Gluo brought up a topic, Sukinghan would answer or listen. Everything was calm, and without any waves, as if that day, Sukinghan's tenderness towards Gluo was just his own fantasy. However, when the two were alone, Sukinghan would smile lightly when they occasionally talked about interesting topics. Her eyelashes were very long, and when she lowered her eyes, she gave people an inexplicable tranquility. And Gluo, he no longer talked as much as before. In the small cake shop, the two would be busy with their own things, sometimes passing by each other. Their eyes met, and both of them were smiling. Without words, the two had already understood that they were gradually approaching each other, regardless of the opposite sex or love. They were gradually accepting each other to get close to themselves. They were slowly becoming friends. The two evolvers hid themselves from each other, and even from everyone in the world. They were like animal cubs, fragile and vigilant. Now, after several attempts and scrutiny, they finally let go of their guard, took off their heavy armor, and began to show each other their true selves. As Gluo counted on his fingers, time passed day by day. On the 20th, Gluo finally received his salary. As a master of traditional martial arts, Gluo's base salary was second only to the store manager. With the profit share, Gluo's salary for this month was more than he had earned in a year in the past. Gluo's bottomed out savings soared to 6 figures. After get off work that day, Gluo's walking posture was wrong. He looked at everyone, and they were not as tall as him. It's not that Gluo is inflated, but that he has been poor for too many years, and has not yet adapted to the reality of being able to eat meat at will. With the money, Gluo considered buying a gift for Sukinghan, but unfortunately he knew nothing about it, so he called Wang Zilin and the answer he got was to buy a bag. Women, everything can be solved with a bag, and if not, then buy another one. Gluo didn't quite believe Wang Zilin's answer, but he went around the mall and found that there was no women's handbag that he liked, or they all looked too ordinary, not worthy of their prices, and the cost performance was extremely low. In the end, Gluo didn't find the gift, but received a call from Sukinghan. This was the first time Sukinghan called him. Gluo answered the phone and explained it haltingly. Sukinghan immediately ordered him not to buy anything and to go to the cake shop immediately. In the cold night, Gluo walked back to the old street alone. Sukinghan had already closed the shop and met him halfway. To Gluo's surprise, after meeting, Sukinghan did not scold him again, but asked him to accompany him for a walk. It was late, and there were few shops in the old street. The two did not actually shop for a long time. Sukinghan chose a very cute keychain and asked Gluo to pay for it. After that, the two went to have a meal. Gluo treated them. They did not go to a restaurant, but to a mutton soup shop on the street. In the cool night of the coming winter, the mutton soup was warm. The two sat on the street, looking at the brilliant lights of thousands of houses, without speaking to each other. But, it felt good. On the way back, Gluo and Sukinghan ran into a group of thugs again. The strange thing was that when the thugs saw the two of them, they immediately hid far away, as if they were very afraid of them. This situation made Gluo and Sukinghan alert at the same time. They did not forget the previous conflict, and the revenge of the thugs would come sooner or later. And now, they endured and hid, not because they were afraid of Gluo, but because they were preparing for a more brutal revenge. However, their revenge came much later than Gluo imagined. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Christmas Eve. After the winter solstice, the weather became noticeably cooler. Gluo, who rented an old house, felt this change even more clearly. Every morning, crawling out of bed has become a battle between body and mind. Hiss, I really want to stay in bed. I don't want to go to work. Gluo tucked in the quilt, looking at the slightly bright sky outside the window, his body becoming heavier. He originally had one day off every week, but in order to pester Sukinghan, he didn't take a day off last month. This was really a loss. This month, he couldn't work overtime for free. Then, take a day off? Gluo picked up his phone, looked at the time, and confirmed that he had 10 minutes to struggle. After 10 minutes, he had to make a decision, whether to take a day off and lie in bed, or go out for breakfast with Sukinghan and continue his life as a social animal. Today is December 24th, Christmas Eve tonight. Gluo didn't celebrate Western holidays in the past, so he never paid attention to them, but in recent days, Gluo and Wang Zilin talked a lot about the key points of chasing girls, and began to pay attention to these holidays. His relationship with Sukinghan is much better now than before, but they can only be described as good friends, not even good friends, let alone close friends, boyfriends, and girlfriends, which is too far. This is a good opportunity. Gluo rubbed his hands in the bed and decisively sent a message to Xiao Dao's hours, deciding to take a day off today. As a master of traditional martial arts, Gluo is much better than the Our people. He can handle the leave with just one sentence, but when it comes to Sukinghan, Gluo becomes timid. After deleting and revising, Gluo finally wrote a message, after thinking about it for a long time. He sent it to Sukinghan with a nervous mood. In less than 3 seconds, Sukinghan's reply arrived. Got it. Gluo was still fantasizing about Sukinghan's concern. He suddenly took a rest. Would she worry that he was sick? Would she knock on the door and come in, touch his forehead, and test his body temperature? Or make him breakfast, and let him relive the warmth of that day? Women are all pigs. Gluo felt very hurt. He shrunk back into the quilt, intending to have a good dream. However, after tossing and turning for 10 minutes, Gluo couldn't fall asleep. Why couldn't he fall asleep? He was excited. Gluo's mind was now full of the party in the evening, what food to buy, what specialties to cook, and what gift to give to Sukinghan. He also had to buy a big cake, full of cream and strawberries. Sukinghan must have never had such a wonderful Christmas after so many years of wandering. She must be very touched. Then, make them confidants, become allies, and conspire for great things. Otherwise, it is said that otakus are waste paper and otaku girls are waste electricity. Gluo, who has been single for 24 years, has reached a state of fantasy. He rolled around with the quilt in his arms, and when he came to his senses, it was already past 8 o'clock. Fuck, it's time to get ready. Gluo could no longer care about staying in bed. He hurriedly got dressed and ran out of the house. Because he was going to give Sukinghan a surprise, Gluo deliberately didn't go to the old street for breakfast. After filling his stomach, Gluo started to buy a lot. This time, Gluo really experienced the happiness of rich people. He no longer had to pick and choose and look for things on sale. Whatever he wanted to eat, he bought it. Gluo's happy shopping lasted for more than an hour. Then he took a taxi to deliver the things home. Before he could even sit still, he suddenly received a text message. The electricity bill at the incubator? There is still a balance of 3,900 yuan. So fast? Gluo put the things he bought on the table, found his notebook, calculated the time when he last paid the electricity bill, and when he inhaled, it felt like a toothache. No way, in less than 2 months, 5,000 yuan is gone. What about electricity? Gluo felt that he had really been cheated. All his savings over the years were filled into this bottomless pit. He lost a lot. Is someone stealing my electricity? Should I go and have a look? Gluo hadn't been there for more than a month. He wanted to go, but now he finally had a day off. Now he had to prepare a surprise for Sukinghan. Time didn't seem to be enough. Forget it, it's such a remote place. It will be dark when I come back. Gluo hesitated for a while, but finally decided to ignore it. The electricity bill for industrial use is more expensive. It shouldn't be stolen by someone. There is no need to worry. Gluo didn't really care about the money. For so many years, he had spent all his money except for food and drink. Gluo had long been accustomed to it. The key issue was that the secrets there must not be discovered by anyone. Don't scare yourself. Today is Christmas Eve. Gluo sat on the chair for a while and soon threw away all the troubles. He took out the things he bought and prepared to start processing the ingredients. Today is Christmas Eve. Sukinghan's business should be good. She tried to make a big Christmas cake 2 days ago. Now she is probably busy. It is estimated that she will not be back early in the evening. Considering the freshness, Gluo did not start to kill the fish and cook the shrimp immediately. He just processed the meat and vegetables and marinated the steaks that needed to be fried and grilled. After the ingredients were almost ready, Gluo felt a little hungry. He originally wanted to go out for dinner, but looking at the food on the table, an idea suddenly came to his mind. Sukinghan, she hasn't tasted my cooking yet. If I send this lunch over, won't her favorability skyrocket? Gluo did not touch the food for the evening banquet, but made 2 simple side dishes, honey glazed braised pork and stir-fried kale, 1 meat and 1 vegetable, plus a glass of sweet lemonade. Carrying 2 thermos buckets full of food, Gluo felt that he was really smart. He deliberately did not eat at home, but chose to take lunch to find Sukinghan. After a while, the two of them were face to face in the cake shop, eating the food he made by himself warmly. The atmosphere must be great, and it also let the customers who came over see that the boss lady of the cake shop is already in a relationship. You flies should stop buzzing and stay where it's cool. By the way, there's also a big cake. Gluo was halfway there when he remembered that he hadn't ordered a cake yet. Normally, Sukinghan was a cake maker, so if he wanted to buy a cake, he would definitely buy it from her. However, Gluo was planning to give her a surprise. If he let her know everything in advance, what a surprise it would be. Gluo thought for a long time, and finally decided not to buy a cake from Sukinghan. He was going to go to a famous cake shop and order one. If Sukinghan was unhappy, he would ask her to try other people's craftsmanship, and if necessary, learn from them to learn from their strengths, and make up for his weaknesses. Perfect. I'm such a little genius. Chapter 50. Bright smile. Just as Gluo expected, when he arrived at the cake shop, Sukinghan was in a very busy state. Compared with batch-baked cakes and bread, the production of cream cakes is more time-consuming and labor-intensive. On weekdays, due to the price, no one comes to order cream cakes unless it is a birthday. But because of the arrival of Christmas, there are still many people who want to live a more romantic life, so the young customers who are rare on weekdays also come to line up obediently at this time. There are really a lot of people. GLUO walked into the cake shop carrying an insulated bucket. Sukinghan listened to his strange tone, looked at him sideways, and then buried his head and began to squeeze the cream flowers. Sukinghan, you have worked hard. Haven't you had lunch yet? I brought it to you at this time. GLUO's tone of voice was so gentle. It's not that he is being weird, but when he just entered the cake shop from the side door, the eyes of those people outside were about to poke him into a hedgehog. Buying cakes for your girlfriend on Christmas and coveting the boss's wife, right? That's right. I'm the pig that wants to eat cabbage. Unlike you who can only talk to Sukinghan when paying for things, I can not only talk to her at any time, but also care about her in a soft voice. It's useless to glare at me, you scum. Give up your daydreams. To be honest, GLUO really didn't expect that Sukinghan's loyal dog would be so, no. It should be said that there are so many people who like to eat Sukinghan's cake. GLUO always reports in the morning to buy cakes for breakfast and comes to clean up before closing the store at night so that Sukinghan can sell out directly, close early, and go home to rest. Counting it up, GLUO's way is to care silently and steadily. This is the first time GLUO came to the cake shop at noon. Good guy, he was scared directly. A bunch of handsome guys are queuing outside. If you know, they are here to buy cakes, but if you don't know, you think they are here to apply for ducks. What are you thinking? Who doesn't know? Why are you pretending to be a big tail wolf? Your family deliberately drives a sports car to buy cakes? And the one in the suit, you are here to be the groom, right? The store is a bit busy right now. I don't have time to eat. Let's wait a while. Sukinghan naturally understood GLUO's thoughts, but unfortunately the girl didn't have that kind of thoughts about anyone, so she didn't care too much about it. However, Sukinghan naturally had to give GLUO face, and his tone was deliberately soft when talking to him. GLUO, you haven't eaten either? If you are hungry, eat first. If you are not hungry, wait for me for a while. Sukinghan looked at the 2 thermos buckets that GLUO brought and naturally understood his little thoughts, so he went with the flow and cooperated with him. It's okay, I'm not hungry. Let's eat together later. Although GLUO tried to hold back his smile, he was still very happy in his heart. After all, Sukinghan's attitude towards him was different from that of others. You see, when she needs a shield, she doesn't look for anyone else but me. This shows that her favorability towards me is obviously much higher than that of others. I have to say that GLUO has really realized the joy of being a dog licker recently. He can clearly feel any slight change in the goddess attitude towards him, and he can even eat 2 more bowls of rice because of it. You concentrate on making cakes, and I'll help you collect the money. GLUO explained to Sukinghan, and walked out of the back room of the cake shop. In front of a group of young and handsome male customers, GLUO sat down at the counter with a bright smile, perfectly interpreting what the boss's feelings are. It's a pity, his smile is a bit disgusting, and none of the young male customers waiting outside like him. Hello, welcome, what kind of cake do you want? My cream cake is being made. Oh dear customer, don't be anxious, the cake will be ready soon. Please stand a little further to the left while waiting, so as not to affect the customers who want to buy cakes. GLUO was always sarcastic. He was the first young man who came over to provoke him, but he was disgusted by the chrysanthemum-like smile and hypocritical words. He couldn't say a word he wanted to say, and could only stand back in his original position in disappointment. Naturally, GLUO's ugly behavior did not scare everyone away. Soon a young man in extraordinary clothes came over. Although the other party was wearing casual clothes, just by looking at the logo on it, GLUO knew that this man's shirt was more expensive than that man's suit. He is an old rich man. Hello, may I ask? GLUO is not a person who treats people differently. He treats everyone equally, and his disgusting attitude is exactly the same. But unfortunately, before GLUO could finish his lines, the handsome guy waved his hand in disgust and interrupted him. I just ordered a cake, it's not enough, I want more. Sorry, there is no more. GLUO still had a smile on his face, but he replied without any delay and interrupted him. The handsome guy stared at GLUO. He didn't expect this to be the answer. He was about to open his mouth to refute GLUO, but he didn't expect GLUO to be one step ahead of him and put the words directly into his ears. There are too many people who want cream now, and the proprietress can't make it, so she won't take orders for the time being. Of course, you can make a reservation and wait for her to finish her meal and rest before making it, although GLUO always had a smile on his face. At this time, the smile had become very fake. He squinted his eyes, staring at the rich and handsome guy, and when he wanted to speak, he retorted, "Of course, you can make a reservation in advance, but I estimate that you will not be able to get it until 4 or 5 o'clock. How about it? Do you want more?" "I don't want it. I won't wait anymore." The rich and handsome guy really has personality. He was so angry after being confronted by GLUO that he turned around and left. He didn't even want the cake he had already paid for. GLUO smiled and said it was no problem and he didn't mean to refund him the money. "Goodbye, I won't see you off, wait for me." The rich and handsome guy obviously felt embarrassed, but he was being stared at by GLUO and he felt very nervous. He didn't even dare to say anything harsh and just drove away in his sports car. TSK boring. GLUO looked at the taillights of the sports car going away and curled his lips in disdain. Tender inside and burnt outside, a piece of cake. GLUO thought that the other party would be angry and fight with him directly, but he didn't expect him to be so cowardly. Fighting would be what GLUO wanted most. Being hit by him and then beating him up would not only make this person lose face and never dare to come over again, but also let these people who are staring at Sukinghan see that he is a wild boar with fangs. "You little pigs dare to snatch cabbage from me. I must let you know why the flowers are so red. Bald donkey, you dare to snatch the nun from me." GLUO put his elbows on the table, his palms supporting his cheeks, his head motionless, his eyes darting around, and the young man who wanted to come over to cause trouble felt uncomfortable being stared at by GLUO and slowly became obedient. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.